into looking into any method of doing so. Thank you.
Caleb, what percentage of customers do you think would want to have a car delivered versus come to the dealership?
I think we could probably see 30%, honestly, because this idea is, let's just say kind of like Amazon. You select what you exactly would want. Like it would go through the manufacturer. It would show all the vehicles available within a 100-mile radius. Similar vehicles, and exact vehicles, and ones that can be built. And so this would allow for customers to their customized option, show them incentives and dealers around the area. And it just gives another opportunity for people to see maybe a vehicle they wouldn't have seen if they haven't went online to look at that vehicle through that way. Now, Cars.com and other sources like AutoTrader have a similar type of interface, but the main is everything can be completed virtually.
Great, thank you.
Anita?
Oh, I'm good.
I was just going to ask you what other similar apps are out there like that, and you sort of answered that at the end.
So dealerships have their own networks and their own softwares to do this, but this is to kind of mainstream it. This is going to be ran through the manufacturer as well as the OEM. So it taps into the manufacturer network, which is very large. Then it also dealer network while awarding them allocations and also giving them the credit for the vehicle. So it allows an expansion for and for the brand itself.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
That was Bradley, Caleb Bradley.
Okay, right.
Hello, my name is Delaney Lucas. What can we do to improve the auto retail industry? As a generation, we're very focused on technology and the boundless capabilities that it can have. So the obvious answer was electric vehicles, right? It seemed to merge the best of worlds, environmentally and technologically. We need to take a different direction. I don't think our infrastructure is ready to support a high flow of electric vehicles, and I think we really need to focus on what our customer actually wants. Now, on what our customer actually wants. Our customers are using their cars as their main form of transportation. It's not like how it used to be when everything was in the same town. I mean, we're driving countless miles, taking our kids to their sporting events, we're taking road trips, and we need a car that is capable, but an infrastructure that is able to support that lifestyle. Now, over the past several years, according to Blue Books, the most purchased vehicle has been a full-size truck that runs on gas. And we do have electric trucks. Chevrolet just came out with one that ranges 400 miles. But in the fine print, that is only for pristine conditions and upkeep. And I'm from Michigan. I mean, those conditions are not attainable. I mean, there's horror stories about Tesla doors freezing shut, lines at the charging stations. I mean, in Florida during evacuations, they tell people to take their electric vehicles out of their garages in case they catch on fire. And the people evacuating, I mean, they're taking their gas cars because they can't rely on them. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that an electric vehicle may be the best choice for you. But it's too soon to be pushing it across the entire country to merge. I understand that there is a push for sustainability, but there are many other opportunities to be just as sustainable that don't have the limitations that electric vehicles have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
Yep.
Have you driven an electric vehicle?
I have, yes.
And what did you think?
I mean, it's different. It feels the same, but it's like, I just can't get past all the limitations that an electric vehicle has. I mean, time's money. We don't have the time to be sitting around a vehicle for 45 minutes. And I mean, we have things to do. Like, my mom was a single parent. She had 2 jobs. She's taking us to all of our sporting events. Like, she didn't have the time to sit and charge her vehicle. I mean, it's a go get gas 5 minutes, but I mean, electric vehicles, they're not even as environmentally friendly. They still emit fossil fuels, which, I mean, contributes to climate change, so what's the argument there?
I just want to know if everybody at this show is from Michigan, Wes.
Well, Northwood's in Michigan, so.
Yeah, we're all from Northwood.
What's wrong with being in Michigan?
No, I think it's great.
I love Michigan.
All these people are from Michigan. Everybody? All right.
There you go.
Yeah, they're in the house.
Home of the national champion Wolverines.
Oh yeah, go blue.
Go blue.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me today to go over my idea on how to innovate and improve the retail automotive industry. Hicks, so without wasting any more time, let's begin. My idea involves taking the untapped potential of a dealership service department. You see, I believe many dealerships are losing out on customers internally, as many dealerships don't take advantage of the customer's relationship with the service department and their service advisor to help move new car inventory and take in used car inventory. So the foundation of my idea would be to change how we approach the service to sales function inside a dealership. To do this, we would have a software that to a dealership CRM that allows a sales department to filter through former clients and find opportunities for customers in equity on their former leases and finance vehicle. The software will then send out a video from the store's GM 3 days before their service appointment, telling them about a complimentary free consultation. The software will then use the equity and the customer's estimated payoff to desk that are within a reasonable amount of the customer's previous transaction, making it easier on the dealership sales department to persuade customers on the opportunity to purchase or lease a new vehicle, while allowing different parameters and filters to maximize profits, customer retention, and CSI scores. This software would also allow you to take in used car inventory more efficiently, as all cars being logged by the software as trade-ins would already be logged by your service department, allowing for a lower internal cost, making it easier to certify and sell these vehicles. By adding this software into a dealership, I'm confident that you would see a dealership's profit rise in the sales department, front end and back end gross profit. This is very important at the moment. Service on average 21% more profit than cars sold organically through the showroom. So let's increase the volume of cars sold out of service. Thank you for having me, and let me on how to innovate the automotive industry. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Kenneth, what makes your idea, how is it different from some of the other equity mining apps that are out there?
So what would make my idea more unique than a lot of is it's going to be able to be more personalized. So of an entire dealership, you would take the dealerships, like for example, when you were and you would assign them to a specific personal service advisor, and when you assign it to that service advisor, that's their service advisor for life while they go through the dealership. From there, as they go through their lease cycle, like every 3 years, of course you want that customer back, it's going to go and them and allow the service advisor to send a video to get them back in the door, making it easier for your sales department to have a spot in your service driver lane where they can sit down with customers and go over the different options for upgrading, making it easier for you to retain that customer and putting them in a spot where they're either going to have to pay for an RO that could be thousands of dollars, or paying for that RO, you can upgrade into a different lease and use your equity as your down payment. And it makes it more convenient for the person.
So I've heard of something similar to this, and I'm curious, and actually use things similar to this, curious how you see the service writers' approach to this. Aren't they going to feel like, I don't want to turn this person over to sales, I want to sell them service work?
Yeah, exactly. So the way that you would get your your service department behind it for the sales department is, one, it's going to increase the amount of ROs that they're going to do, because you're obviously going to keep that customer for warranty work, things of that nature as well. Also, you can also do check requests for the service advisor. So if you write up their personal customer, it could be a bonus to them, right? So they can get, let's say, $100, $200 just out of the front end gross profit of the deal, because you're already 21% more. So why not give them a mini commission, almost like a flat?
Okay, great.
Good answer.
Thanks.
Is that everything?
That's
Thank you
great.
so much.
Thank you.
We got here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Noah. Artificial intelligence. It's been a hot topic as of late, especially in the automotive industry. Now, many may be asking the question, how can artificial intelligence positively impact the automotive retail industry as a whole? My answer to that question is it's time to evolve the way online shopping is executed on dealership websites. This evolution starts by reworking the live chat boxes that are currently found on dealer websites to incorporate artificial intelligence. This process starts by creating a digital avatar of each and every salesperson to resemble how they would look in person. Now, once these avatars are created, the star of the show comes in. An artificial intelligence engine will be running each and every salesperson's avatar that will be preloaded with some common questions and answers, as well as common knowledge about the dealership, such as current inventory. Now, once these AI avatars are created, they will have an ever-learning engine in them as well. So when the customers interact with them more, it will have better answers to give them, almost as if you were training a salesperson on the dealership floor. Once the avatars are created, the customers will then have their pick to choose the avatar they gravitate to most. a custom-tailored shopping experience. A lot of people starting their search for a car online these days. Artificial intelligence agents are great for creating new leads by creating the customers, having more interactions, and keeping them on the websites for longer periods of time. These AI avatars are also an extension of your current sales team. So while your sales team is out creating new leads and making more sales, their digital counterparts will be doing the exact same thing. In conclusion, this will almost double your sales team without having to take on double the payroll costs. It will create more leads, increase dealership inventory turnover, and create for more profit for the dealership in the end. Thank you.
Anita?
I don't know. It sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on it just a little more? Is it software? Is it an app? What do you?
Yeah, so you're familiar with many of the live chat boxes when you log on to a dealership, right? Essentially be the exact same thing, but it'll be a digital avatar, and the customer will choose the avatar in order to guide them through their shopping experience, maybe having any questions that they'll have. They'll answer them instantaneously with a unique answer every single time, helping them throughout their process of shopping.
What do you
I'm way too old to.
Yeah, what do you think the cost of something like this to create or
So-
for a dealer to subscribe to?
The cost has not been discussed yet, but if it wants to be competitive in the industry, it will have to be around the same price as the competition that's being out right now. So I would anticipate that the software will be about the same price as some of the competing softwares out on the market today.
Well, is it competition against software or is it competition against human resource? So the way you said it was, or the way I took it was, you could have twice the sales force for not half the price because obviously it has to cost something. So I'm curious
Correct.
what you're thinking
So
is there.
I get where you're coming from. I actually did think about that while I was doing this. So artificial intelligence, it's a tool, and it's only as smart as the people that use that tool. So your digital sales team will be an extension of your current sales team. They won't be overtaking it, running it. They will only be a helping hand to when you're trying to make more leads and more sales.
Great. Thank you.
So
problem.
would the avatars be like a likeness to your salespeople?
Yeah, so they'll look exactly like the salesperson that they're going to be resembling. They'll have the same physical features. The salesperson will be able to dress them up in where they'd like, as if you were talking to the salesperson on the sales floor.
Very cool.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Idea. Thank you. Who we got here? Sawyer.
Good morning, NADA audience.
Good morning.
It is a pleasure to be speaking in beautiful Las Vegas. It's actually my first time away from Michigan. It's crazy. First plane ride too. It was an event. My name is Sawyer Jordan. I'm a freshman here at Northwood University, and I am ready to be a proactive, ambitious, and evolutionary leader in this automotive industry. Sorry. See, that's enough of me for now. I want to introduce you all to my friend Jeff. See, now Jeff here is hand in hand with his phone, right? Jeff is technological. He loves everything online, right? So that brings me to this question. I'm going to address the elephant in this room. How many here have Amazon on our phone? Show of hands. Right, so any of us Prime members too? Excellent, excellent, great to see. See, now, we're all familiar with that buying process. We're all familiar with the experience that it offers us. Entirely seamless, entirely comfort of our own home, 3 tap of our fingertips, bam, at our doorstep. It's incredible. See, now, Jeff is a highly informed, qualified customer, and nobody loves this seamless transition more than he. See, now, 3 fingertips, bam, doorstep. That's the secret. That's the secret. Have you all met Jeff? Right? See, but dealers, Jeff here has a problem. Jeff wants experience with buying a vehicle, and it's difficult to find a dealer willing to align themselves with bringing that same experience and the dealership to his driveway, bringing the vehicle and the dealership to his driveway. See, leaders of this industry, let me introduce you all to WeDrive. Evolved and built dealers driven by the consumers of tomorrow. Dealers, are you ready to join me in building your exclusive highway to your customer of tomorrow? WeDrive. Evolved by dealers, created by dealers, driven by customers of tomorrow. Thank you.
Wow.
How do you approach taking a trade-in?
Trade-in. So there are a lot of online platforms such as AutoTrader, not Carvana, sorry, AutoTrader, Kelley Blue Book, and they are starting to process digitally. So I feel like if we partner up with along the lines of that, get the trade-in done at home, it can bring it. And because we're involving the dealers, what I did when I was on a BDC team is we would take the vehicle to the customer, have them test drive it, take their vehicle, appraise it at the dealership, then come back to them. It's all to them, all in their driveway. They don't gotta lift a foot off the couch.
I thought Wes asked to another presenter, how many people do you think do that kind of transaction? Obviously it's not everybody, right? So what percentage of people do you think want to do that kind of transaction?
Do it online?
Yeah.
Online, at home?
Right, so see, 94% of North Americans are on their phone. So 94% of all of us here have that digital experience. We all are so used to sitting on the couch, ooh, I want this thing, I want that thing. I have no doubt we all have Christmas shopping, we're all online, tap on that thing, bring it to our doorstep. Let's have the dealers do it. Let's have the dealership lead this platform themselves. That way, they're not getting booted out by these big companies trying to join our game. We're going to retake this industry. We're going to do it for the consumer's benefit.
So how many people do you think want to do it this way?
Dealers?
No, consumers. How many
Consumers? I'd say a large
Half?
amount. I would honestly say 70%. And with time, my generation coming into this, we're so used to subscription-based models. We're so used to online, Amazon, shopping online. I feel like with my generation coming into the game, it will be a rocket. It'll be a skyrocket. Generation of tomorrow. We might as well go that curve. We have to disrupt ourselves before we are disrupted.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think Wes is going to hire that guy right away.
No, I am.
Are you showing? Why does this number show here? Just give me 1 minute.
Because that's how you scored them.
I scored the rest of these and they go up. Okay, we're good. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
Nice to see you, Vanessa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vanessa Collins. I'm a third-year student at Northwood University, and I am absolutely honored to be presenting on the live stage of the Auto Industry Event of the Year, NADA. When I hear the question, how can the automotive retail landscape, a clear solution comes to mind, and I'm ecstatic to be sharing that today with you. If you're a dealer looking to elevate customer service, provide a VIP experience, and boost, then you'll want to hear what I have in store for you. Let's redefine the automotive buying experience by offering a comprehensive and authentic service that sets your dealership apart. This will not only enhance customer satisfaction, but will also significantly improve profitability through repeat business, referrals, and the sale of high-profit accessories. It starts simple by sending each customer home with a full tank of gas and a curated swag bag. This swag bag will include branded and practical items like a trash can, ice scraper, tire gauge, and a cleaning kit. It's a small investment with a huge return, increased customer satisfaction. Next, let's provide a unique sit-down session with customers to personalize their vehicle with accessories that suit their personality. That's right, we are seamlessly integrating aftermarket within the dealership to create a convenient customer experience. We recognize many customers may struggle to visualize these additions, so by providing an interactive digital presentation, it'll illustrate how the chosen accessories will transform the look of their vehicle. Now, this will not only help close the sale, but by adding the accessories into the financing, it'll add a much more convenience for our customers, which goes a long way. Let's recap. Full tank of gas, branded swag bag, and a unique experience that allows customers to personalize their vehicle right there within the dealership. This is a delivery experience that surpasses the conventional standards, turning the moment a customer takes ownership of their vehicle into a personalized and memorable event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Question? How much time do you think it adds to the transaction time, spending this additional time going through accessories and stuff like that?
I would say probably about an hour, just because going through all the accessories, questions that the customers might have for the sales representative, and also viewing it with the technology. It could be augmented reality or an iPad presentation, but they'll definitely want to personalize their vehicle to suit their personality.
So adds an hour to what do you think the average transaction time is now that a person has to spend in the store to buy a car?
For me, overthinker. It would take definitely a few hours because I want to be sure on my decision. But for somebody that knows what they want and they know the different features they're looking for, probably an hour to 2 hours.
Okay.
How are you going to handle online customers?
Online customers, we could implement a platform onto the website showing them, with the different model accessories, the general accessories that to the car. But coming in store would add more of like a personable experience.
Can you get an avatar to go to their house or something?
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, let me ask this question. How many parents do we have here? All right, good, all right. Now, I have a daughter that's first year in college. We gave them a round of applause, but I don't think we did them justice. I mean, you have to imagine,
agreed.
these are first year all the way through fourth year, some of them first time here in Las Vegas. I've got Maggie that's all the way on the other side of the convention. Let's give them a round of applause that she can hear all the way on the other
Yeah,
side.
there we go.
Great job, each and every one of you. Also,
May I say something?
Yes, absolutely.
More than applause, I would like to hire them all.
Yeah.
There you go. See?
I admire their courage and their enthusiasm, and it's very uplifting.
I agree. It was unbelievable. And did you notice that the one he was reading his notes from like back here, that's youth.
Yeah,
He was
right.
looking at his
Yeah,
notes all the way
definitely.
back here, and I'm like, he's pretty far. It's good
Hey,
vision,
I can do
right?
that. My arm isn't long enough.
Exactly, right? So I'm glad I wear contacts. But again, we want to thank them. We're going to announce the winner very shortly of the competition. And as I mentioned with the pitch competition, if this is your first time seeing this, it is something that we started last year, and we're going to continue to do that. We actually have more pitch sessions that will be coming up throughout the days here. So make sure that if you're interested, you're interested in attending that, go ahead and make sure you find that in the NADA app. So that's another pitch and plug to download the app. Make sure you're utilizing it. And make sure that you know when the next pitch competition is happening. So again, we're gonna tally up everything. We'll be announcing the winner. Are we ready for that? All right, let's give it our winner. Here we go.
Let's give another round of applause to all of our contestants. That was awesome. Thank you. Also want to thank Northwood University for their partnership to allow this to happen, and thank you to all of our judges for their time for the competition. So the winner of today's contest will win a $2,000 Visa gift card, this trophy that they can take home. And the winner is
Roll.
Noah Koss.
Yeah.
You could say a few words if you would like.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that's helped me with this speech. All the connections that I've made has been truly amazing. I've gained so much knowledge, and I'm ready to keep going in the automotive retail industry. Thank you, everyone.
Great job. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you so
Great
much.
job.
Nice job.
Thank you so much.
We're going to do a photo op. And then we'll do one with all the judges.
Oh, boy.
We'll come over.
Come on in. Why don't you get in the middle here? We'll get you right.
Yeah.
You're
There
the
you
Yeah,
go.
you're
There
the
you go.
winner.
star.
Good.
You can tell everybody that 11 a.m. every day we're going to do another live stage pitch.
Yeah, so tomorrow and Saturday at 11 a.m. we're going to have another pitch competition. Tomorrow will be exhibitors, and then Saturday at 11 a.m. will be dealership philanthropy and how dealers are giving back to their communities. So see you back here tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Anthony. And we're not done just yet. I actually want to take some time, excuse me while I reset a little bit here, to have more conversations about Northwood University and some of the great things Northwood University is doing there. So there we are, a little bit better there. Sorry about that. I want to take some time to have a more in-depth conversation about Northwood University, some of the awesome opportunities that they're creating, because as I mentioned, all of the candidates that you've seen and all of the pitch competitors were actually and currently attending Northwood University. So to help me with that, LG Bright, he's going to come up and we're going to talk a little bit more about Northwood and some of the things that they're doing in the automotive space. Give him a round of applause. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. So first off, wow, right? I mean, that was amazing to really put that in perspective of what they were up here pitching, and the ideas, the concepts, the tough questions that they were able to field. How did they get prepared for this?
You know, they had a chance to do a 1-minute audio, and you know, they just put thought to the great industry. They looked at what was happening today, what they want to see in the future, and you know, from concept, they came up with some system design thinking, and wow, you know, just spit it out today. So I think what the audience is seeing is the future of automotive in live form. I mean, they really are excited about what this industry has to offer.
Absolutely. And I think one of the great things about the environment like Northwood, because we talk about culture, right? And from a dealership culture, really any atmosphere or environment, culture is important.
It is. It's extremely important. And these students, you know, they're going to, you know, we talk about work-life balance. They're figuring out what that looks like. We talk about, you know, what the future transportation, mobility, they're going to figure that out. I mean, they know that they are the leaders of tomorrow. We have 3 dealers sitting over here judging. That'll be them in years. They
Absolutely.
really want to coach. They want to mentor. They want to bring organizations into 2024 and beyond. I couldn't be prouder.
Yeah. And I think just thinking about it from a perspective standpoint, I mean, I'm sure some of them maybe haven't even purchased their first car yet on their own, right? And so that's a kind of, to have a conceptual idea of something that you haven't necessarily experienced yet. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal. The same way that athletes are disciplined and practicing, that accountants and lawyers, they study the automotive industry, from marketing to management to operations. I mean, they study. And these great dealers, these vendors, these professionals out there, these students want to be them. And so the product is, but what they bring to the table in terms of coaches and mentors, I mean, that is the main thing.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. I mean, because obviously at their age, they're inundated with so much, whether it be social media, friends, peer groups, etc. How does the culture and the atmosphere at Northwood get them acclimated for this industry and excited about it?
We call it experiential learning. So, you know, they have a lot of homework, and I know homework is important, but this is their homework. To come out and experience the industry in real time with professionals, that gets them jazzed up. I mean, if they're watching a video of the Ted Ings Roundtable or a podcast with Jennifer Suzuki, I mean, those things are meaningful to them, and they see themselves in those professionals that are being interviewed. And, you know, I hear it the way that, you know, we debate sports talk. That's what they talk about, and it's exciting for me. It's challenging because I know this industry is in good hands.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned that 10 to 15 year down the road, right? In your current position, where do you see the industry ending, or how do, you know, we talk about the 4 concepts and ideas that they created. How do you see them impacting that 10 to 15 years from around?
Really tech savvy. I think technology is a piece. It's going to be a big piece of the product. But these students are going to know how to market with technology. They're going to know how to lead with technology. They're going to know that all these repeatable processes belong in technology so that they can build a better customer experience. You know, they're really going to get around tech. And I like it in retail. 1979, it was Kmart.
Right.
In 2024, it's Amazon.
Yeah.
And so these students are going to take us from a Kmart world in retail to an Amazon world.
Absolutely. So that's a great point that you bring up. How can then we be supportive or interactive? Because understanding there is a shift. You know, there is a shift that is coming, that's currently happening, and we're seeing that transition. What can we do to be more supportive?
Well, the industry can get around their local high schools, around their local camps, and you can find the full tank camp at Northwood University, powered by General Motors. You can find that on the website, and you can get that, support that. But we are going to be the caretakers of our industry when we take what we do and put it in front of the future generation. So in those high school career days, some of those should happen at our local dealerships. We ought to see that finance manager, we ought to see that service manager, that sales manager, and students ought to see that in 8th and 9th grade.
Yeah, I think you're right, because you think about some of the professions when you do have a career day, and the concept of it is one thing, but like you said, the being in the live environment really helps set it apart. So let me ask you this, because Northwood University, so you guys have been here year after year. What has helped you consistently stay and be kind of the automotive hub, if you will, in that educational space?
Because 200 students find a small university in Midland, Michigan, and say, I want to study to be the best in this great industry. Yeah. And that's what keeps us relevant, that's what keeps us alive. And as these students find Northwood University, the industry professionals that make up the culture and the decision making, they come and they help educate. They step into the classroom, they are our books. So the students on any day might see a CEO or a CMO or a CTO. We learn about artificial intelligence and machine learning in the retail industry live. We're not waiting for you to write the book and 5 years from now a professor adopts it.
Yes.
We bring somebody in and they talk to them live.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, what if we have dealers out there, other individuals out there, and they want to be involved or find out more information? How can we be more involved in the Northwood experience?
It's Bright E at northwood.edu. You find LG Bright and you get a hold of me, and you're going to have some amazing people that are going to contact you. I look out into the audience. I see Jen Patton over there and Jen Briggs, and I know Jenna Smith. Somebody is going to get back with you and say, how can you help us? Here are the ways. 1, 2, 3, and they're gonna give you a plan to either come on campus or to come in remotely, but you will be in front of the future leaders of the retail automotive industry.
Yeah, and I think that's very imperative, because one of the things that we talked about earlier is the need for people, right? And that right now, when you look at the current, say, pool, it's very difficult. So I think one of the things that happens, we talk a lot about with our youth, right? Entry-level jobs, and that being a thing. And traditionally, we all talked about, the fast food industry, all the things that entry-level jobs kind of entail. How do we then get comfortable with bridging the gap, with having an institution like Northwood University who's taking time to train up, the future generation? How do I then have the confidence as a dealer to say, yes, I know you might have youth on your side, but I can still be confident in your skills?
I think one of the points of entry is, how do you feel about sales? If you're running away from sales, this may not be the career for you. But if you look at those students and many other students, they want to be in sales. They realize that your presentation skills, your communication skills, your management, your financial, all of that is sales.
Yeah.
You're telling a story. You're telling a story to the customer. You're telling a story to your accounting staff. You're telling a story to manufacturer. Sales and influencing and persuading is something that we start with from their very first intro. And I think that if we get that right, then we know that we have a pool of candidates that if someone comes to a career fair, they want to be in your business. And I heard several of the dealers say, I would hire every one of them.
Yes.
And for me, that's the outcome, is when an employer says, I'll hire students.
Yeah, and I think you said a key word that especially that generation is so big on, and that's, I think we are in the day and age, anyone on social media knows about influencers, and how that works and how important that role is, because an influencer literally just does that, gives you insight that makes you want to participate or be involved. So when someone comes in, because I know one of the contestants was first year, freshman, how does that happen, where somebody to come in first year, just getting to Northwood University, and then now afforded an opportunity like this?
Sawyer Jordan came to our camp, And he was exposed to the industry through his family, but the exuberance, the excitement, the engagement that you saw, I mean, he did that from day one. And he felt comfortable. He felt supported. He felt like, you know, I've already got the A, and now all I have to do is shoot.
Nice.
I need to, you know, practice my craft the same as athletes do.
Right.
And I watch these young men and young women as they look at videos, as they interact with professors, with their peers, and I perfect example of that. And that's from year one. So you can imagine in year 2, 3, and 4.
Absolutely.
You know, he's going to be the superstar. So when you're coming from California, Texas, or Florida, or you're in the Great Lakes states, you know, when he comes by your career fair table, you're ready to hire, to make that job offer. And that is the partnership that we have at Northwood University with the industry. The outcome is employment.
Yes.
And that's this is the product.
And because that's a great point, because again, the goal and the bridge is to start here in the educational sector, but ultimately end up in the professional sector. How are you helping the students transition and bridge that gap? Because one of the things that we heard and talked about earlier was the high kind of in this hurry up, fast paced environment where if I do find the position or find the right person, I know that they're looking for other positions. How do you guys cultivate that to where they can make that bridge from education to profession?
A differentiator for us, and we call it the Northwood idea, but is personal responsibility, that you are responsible for your outcomes, and that what you put into it, you're going to get out of it. So if you're doing industry news, if you're engaging with the speakers that come on campus, if you're taking these experiential, you're personally responsible for your career. We're here to support you, but that's a big tenet for us. And being responsible in athletics is wanted. Being responsible in your educational pursuits is wanted. That's how we bridge that gap. The Northwood idea is something that we believe in free markets. We believe in democratic capitalism. We believe that if you don't have regulation in front of the dealer, not over-regulation, that they'll hire more people, that they'll expand, that they'll bring in more salespeople, more people. They'll give a better customer experience. And students get around that, really they become influential in the community. Yeah. And that's how we bridge that gap. We think that they're different from, there's some great students, there's some great universities, but when our students have that from day one,
yes,
by the time it's day 4, I'm responsible for my career. And that's the gap that we bridge.
That makes sense. Now, another thing that might come out of this, especially when we talk about the automotive industry or even, you know, kind of relating it to sports, sometimes we think of that being a family business, right? You know, my father plays sports, and so I'm going to follow in that footsteps. My father's a dealer principal, so I'm going to follow in those footsteps. How do you, if there's people out there that maybe they aren't in that principal position, but they maybe have a child or someone in the automotive space, how does that work? How do they then get involved or get a better understanding of, hey, this is a path you can take regardless of your lineage?
You know, it's interesting, Errol, that I see students that come from family dealerships that end up going to a corporate route, maybe for a big automotive technology company or older, and maybe they'll make their way back to the family dealership. See students that come from family dealerships go back to the family dealership. So then another segment, they're not from a family.
Yes.
And yet they seek out and they see this wonderful career in retail automotive. They see these wonderful family entrepreneurial businesses, and you know, they take that opportunity. So now all of a sudden they are in a family business.
Right.
And then the leg of that table is they're not from a family business, and yet they take a corporate route for one of the OEMs, the manufacturers, or they go to a tech company. So whether you come from a family business, go back or don't, or not from a family business, go to a family business or to a corporation, you know, they figure it out.
Nice.
You know, it's personal responsibility, and also those people that support and say, hey, we're looking for you.
Yes.
You know, just like we compare athletics, just like they do in athletics, and say, we're looking for you.
Yeah, and what's great is all of our competitors kind of boosted up and added to their highlight reel, so to speak. So that's great to see. Well, LG, I want to thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. And I know you mentioned your email earlier, but I know that if people are interested, they can find you and have more if they have more questions. But I think what Northwood University is doing is fantastic, and I'm certainly excited to see it.
Thank you. Thank you to the NADA. Thank you to all those men and women that are in this great business. God bless the automotive industry.
I agree. Amen. All right. Thank you. And we're not going anywhere. We've got a couple videos that we're going to show, so continue to remain comfortable in the NADA live stage living room, and we'll be back very shortly, all right?
Must-see events and all the insider tips to calm the NADA show like a pro. And speaking of pro tips, here's the guide to winning in Las Vegas. Pro tip number 1, pace yourself. This is a marathon, not a sprint. You don't want to waste all your energy, and you definitely don't want to be this guy. Next up, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. We're in the desert, people, and water is your best friend. If you didn't get your badge last night, you can pick it up at several of the satellite hotels or here at the convention center. Don't forget to download the NADA Show app. That's your personal guide to everything NADA Show. Expo, education, workshops, you don't want to miss a beat. Today is jam-packed with action, kicking off with the Women Driving Auto Retail event, which is back and bigger than ever. Don't forget about the NADA Live Stage, featuring industry experts, special guests, and maybe a few surprises. It's the perfect spot to connect, charge up, and rest your legs. And at noon, dive into our workshops and exchange sessions. And for the grand finale, join us for the NADA Show opening reception, A Night Under the Sphere, featuring Postcard from Earth by Oscar-nominated director Darren Aronofsky. This will be the moment that everybody talks about, and you want to be part of it. So dress your best, come for gourmet food and networking. This will be the best party in town. This will be the best party in any town. Follow along the full schedule at nadashow.org. Stay tuned, stay excited, and let's make this NADA show the best one yet.
I've been working for car dealers for just about 30 years. I love the spirit. I love the entrepreneurship. It's really one of the last true American dreams. I'm Mike Stanley, President and CEO of NADA. As most of you probably know, NADA exists for two primary reasons. Number 1, to educate, and number 2, to advocate for our dealer members. The key value that NADA provides for dealerships, we've got a lot of dealerships that are members of NADA. Over 90% of dealerships belong to NADA. So with that kind of power in numbers, we can take your voice to Capitol Hill, to Congress, to the administration, and to our manufacturers.
When we advocate on behalf of dealers, we look at potentially all 3 branches of government. And that actually has played out with the vehicle shopping rule. NADA filed extensive comments explaining why the proposed rule was very problematic for consumers. That resulted in several revisions which will help dealers, but it did not go far enough. NADA is supporting legislation to negate the rule, and NADA also has filed a judicial challenge against the rule.
The Biden administration's EPA has proposed that by model year 2032, 67% of all new vehicle sales are fully battery electric. We think too far, too fast. NADA believes that a more balanced approach is not only going to be achievable, but better for the environment. Consumer demand has got to catch up with political aspirations. We take your voice and we meet with the White House. We meet with Congress. We talk to the IRS. talk to the EPA. Rest assured, NADA has your back. Together, we can move this industry further. So if you're engaged, please get engaged. But we're here to help you do just that. We're glad you're here at the NADA show. It's a great opportunity to learn from each other, develop new relationships, and grow. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brian Wayne.
And I'm Michelle Blakely. We're thrilled to extend a personal invitation to all of you to our NADA Live Stage presentation, Attracting Customers, the Battle of EV and ICE.
We'll be delving into topics such as covering consumer expectations, branding, and tailored communications for both EV and ICE consumers.
Plus, discover strategies to drive more revenue to your dealership. I promise you, you won't want to miss.
We hope to see you there.
Why does Sam Pack send his team to NADA?
You ever wonder how to take your dealership from what the heck are we doing to wow, we got this?
What are we going to do about the used car shortage?
Can we keep a copy of their driver's license?
Hey boss, this client has a 550 credit score. Is it even worth my time?
All those questions and more will be answered in NADA. The National Automobile Dealer Association show, where you learn A to Z of the car world. Remember 1917 when cars were considered a luxury? Nope. Neither do we. Thanks to NADA, cars became a consumer good, saving our granddaddies big bucks.
NADA is more than just a legacy. Visionary leader for the automotive industry. With their guidance, dealerships stay ahead of the finance trends and champion fair practice against restrictive regulations.
At NADA, your finance director will learn valuable techniques on safeguarding your customers' information and how to protect your dealership against fraudulent activity.
I also learned about fair lending practices, identity theft, red flags, and OFAC requirements.
NADA teaches us on how to hire, train, and retain quality technicians.
And proper scheduling is crucial to keep those technicians busy and productive. At NADA, we learn about equipment and technology to make it happen.
At NADA, your used car will learn the latest techniques on acquiring used car inventory, pricing and advertising to the so that you can survive any disruptions to the new car supply chain.
Thanks to NADA training, I can better navigate the used car marketplace.
Become a used car value guru with NADA's invaluable resources. And did we miss the celebs? From Ronald Reagan to George Bush, they've all made pit stops at NADA.
So why go turn oh no into pro? With NADA, we've turned 5-star Ford into 6-star Ford.
Sean, that's not a thing.
With NADA, anything is possible.
Don't miss the auto industry event of the year, NADA Show 2024, Driving the Future.
Been in the industry now for almost 11 years. There was an opportunity to join the operations side in the sales department at one of our local dealerships. The opportunities for women in this business are endless. There are all of these different avenues for women to come into this industry and really find a home and be successful.
I'm always excited to see all the vendors that I know. I'm always excited to see everybody in the industry.
We really like the expo last year. It's an opportunity to take classes if you want to.
NADA helps providing everything that you need for a dealer under one roof so you can see it all, compare it side by side. It's great.
Every year there's new things. Whatever is new is
Well, my name is Jonathan Beck.
All right, so as always, we are going to continue moving the program forward. I hope you all are having a great time enjoying the NADA living room and the live stage. I'm excited for tonight, excited for the welcome event, but also make sure that you download the app because you don't want to miss anything, and it's a great way to navigate around the show. Next up, we are going to talk about digital analytics and how it's informing market strategies. And so what I'd like to do at this time is welcome up Jim Dodd. He's going to be our moderator for this next segment. So as always, let's give Jim a big round of applause.
I guess I'll go here. You're there. He's in the middle. All right. Cool. It's like air traffic control.
It is. Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good? Great. Dan Moore and Rich are going to talk to us a little bit about marketing, digital technology, doing here. So, you know, with all the things, the challenges that are facing dealers today, especially in technology, what should they be looking for?
Well, first of all, it's around the customer experience. I mean, being able to extend profitability in today's market, absolutely critical. What we've seen the last several years with dealers and the profitability where they've been at, and then now these forces are at play. Being able to take that profitability line and extend that forward is critical. I think technology plays an absolutely critical role in that. AI specifically, emerging technology, it's everywhere. You see it everywhere you go. You experience it in all aspects of life. And in fact, you know, what we're seeing is a rapid adoption rate of that AI technology to help extend the profitability. But doing it around a customer experience is key. Customer comes first, and again, is a people business, always has been, always will be. And what AI is doing is enabling, elevating those human-to-human interactions.
Dan, it seems like AI has taken off really fast. I mean, it's a rapid evolution. How do you feel dealers are adapting to that? How quickly can they do that?
I think it depends on the product and what you're going to do with AI. Number one, I mean, AI has been around for a while, so it's not necessarily starting to embrace it at a more rapid rate because it's advancing and there's a lot of capabilities to streamline efficiencies in the dealership, which many of you know, at the end of the day, efficiency is really what we're facing when you look at people and process. So this is where AI can plug in, take it all the way or bring it in nice and easy and bring it in gradual phases. You can see some of those efficiencies pick up to where you're taking some of the mundane tasks of your team and they're able to focus on the more important things. So there really is that kind of balance of where you can gain operational efficiencies using AI.
So with that in mind, what are the biggest opportunities you think dealers have going forward?
I think the big one is to be able to drive that customer experience and intercept them on the way inbound to their dealership. Right now, the overall experience on phones is not great, let's just be honest, and be able to transform that experience into a positive, modern experience from a consumer standpoint and be able to create that loyalty and retention at the rooftop level. first ring answer, branded experience, very efficient call routings, direct service booking, real-time updates. Those are important to consumers, and being able to have a relationship, which is referred to as like a dialogue. It's a conversation that never. It's an ongoing relationship between consumer and dealer.
Sure, but you've got to look at the engagement rate. It's going to go up, right? It should go up, right? But how are you going to then blend it in with what's being done at a dealership by human beings?
Well, I think where that comes in is you guys think about long. Great, we're not at it. AI can jump in and carry the customer the longer distance and stay on top of them, whether it's the point of trying to get them in to buy a car or even after sale, getting them in for that, first oil change, that, increasing your CSI. This is where AI can come, because again, we're depending on our people, and sometimes just based on how many people we have, the number of volume of opportunities may be coming in or not coming in. This is where I think AI can kind of bridge that gap, and it becomes a hand-to-hand, not just a takeover.
Okay, with all the channels of communication that they have available to them, which ones do you think are going to be the most engaging for consumers?
I mean, right now, it's pretty clear. Around this room, everybody, if I said email is the most important, you guys would laugh, and I would agree. It's really phone and text are the primaries, and we're still trying to down this email chain. So I think changing that lens and creating more opportunity for the consumer to connect the way they want to, you'll enhance and elevate your opportunities and the customer experience to Rich's point.
Yeah, I think a balanced approach is right. I mean, over 90% on the phone, being able to have that intimate relationship through a real-time conversation, not a machine-based or an IVR-based conversation, but a conversation that's based upon where the customer wants to take and what the task is that they're after. Email, you're right. This is we're pushing things into email, but the consumers are responding through text and primarily through phone.
Okay, so give me some examples of how you see those communications being managed, those opportunities.
Well, I mean, the first part, just think about all of you guys. So before you guys came here, how many emails did you get from all of the vendors telling about their game-changing things that they have for you? How many of you marked that red and moved on with life? But how many of you took the phone call from those vendor partners that you like and you engage with, and you said, hey, what's going on? Oh, we're going to NADA. We got something we want to show you. Great, I'll be by, right? It's that engagement. It's that relationship business. And yet, again, this is where I think email misses the boat, and the phone and a really good phone process, as well as texting and some of the other means of communication, because again, messaging, there's so many. It's meeting the customer where we're at, and we're still kind of fighting with that. And if we kind of embrace where the customer wants to go, the return is higher.
Yeah, we have to be able to move between channels, and that's one of the big parts of an full omni-channel experience, is being able to move seamlessly from a phone to a text to a chat back to a phone, but not starting the conversation. And that's where AI really plays a powerful point, because now you have an efficient and meaningful relationship with the customer where they are, dealership, and like Dan said, we're the whole point of this is to drive that engagement level, that retention level, so that you're creating a loyal customer base.
So there are multiple facets of marketing that you have to employ, right? AI is just one of those facets. It's not going to change everything, revolutionize everything, but it's going to certainly revolutionize the conversation between consumer and the dealer.
Well, I think the biggest thing that we think is we sign up for something, we get the latest buzzword, whatever it is, and we're done. It's not. AI takes prompting. It takes a human to point it in the right direction. It takes learning. It takes time. It's sometimes ready out of the box to understand your customer, your dynamics, how you engage with the customer, and it starts learning and evolving over time. That's why kind of bring it in a bridged approach, not just like full turn on the faucet, but turn it on nice and slow and let it gain ground and learn how you communicate, how your customers communicate. Then it starts to basically those points. And again, I think to the point too, it's omni-channel. So when you start looking at AI, humans, we can't over content, right? I mean, how many of you guys, that work leads go all the way through the customer record and know everything about the customer? It takes a long time. AI, click, it already knows. So the ability to respond more informed, AI does a fantastic.
Yeah, and part of that is being able to recognize the customer when they call. I mean, this being able to have that real-time AI base around who you are, the experience with the dealership. I mean, if you're a dealer out there and you're wondering, should I try this out or not, this is where your customers want to engage. There's we've seen studies that around 37% of your customer base wants to engage with an AI agent because they have been conditioned for real-time, instantaneous feedback to accomplish your task. The AI agent can do that in a wonderful way. It's important to note, though, that the way I view the world is in the upper right quadrant is where we promote and enhance and elevate these human-to-human interactions. But the bottom left quadrant is perfectly situated to take on the repetitive tasks day to day that the consumer isn't excited about, but your employee not be excited about as well. I mean, we just came from a different conference. The overwhelming point was trying to staff DC or staff service advisor. That's a difficult job to staff. You've got to train and maintain that relationship with your employee. Now you're able to promote and elevate that employee experience so they're having more meaningful conversations with your customers right there in front of you in the service lane, but also, again, through phone, text, and multiple channels.
So do you see AI as being an opportunity to reduce expenses?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, right out of the gate, you're going to never miss a call. So how much is one service call worth? How much is, 1,000 a month? And we've seen stats that, I was at a specific dealer that had 43% of all calls were missed. That means a call was missed, not went to voicemail, or the customer abandoned the call. What's that worth? Number one. Two, very, very low cost. You have a branded experience that you can control at the rooftop level that will enhance your brand and then control the dialogue flow of how you want to engage with your customers at a very 24/7. I've never takes a bathroom break or a lunch break and is always in a good mood.
Well, and there, because you use the word reduce, I think the reality of what the word should be is scale. Sometimes we get a little trigger and we just want to, I can clear out my staff. I think the reality to it is scale. What we're looking at is ability to scale, and this is where it comes in, because you can bridge that ability of what your current team structure is, get on the right things, and like I said earlier, just taking some of the mundane tasks, more intentional work. Because again, most people, and many of you in the room, do what? More than one thing, right? The biggest thing you always want is more time. This is where that balancing is. And again, with the marketing spends and where people are making adjustments, you need to be able to handling those opportunities to the best of the ability, because again, the biggest challenge with most marketing spend is operational inefficiencies. We're just compensating.
One of the most important things too, I come from a world where if you can't manage it if you can't measure it. So putting in a really powerful performance management platform where you were able to see all calls, transcribe all calls, so you can see what was said, those calls as, for example, positive, negative sentiment, and be able to route those calls to as it is very powerful. And then you can put stats against that and then start to do the attribution around who called your dealership and where did they come from and why, and then what's the cadence.
So this sounds really all great and easy, but you talked about earlier people and processes, right? So if you're a dealer contemplating AI and the use of AI, how do you engage in AI and envelop it into your process if you have a cradle to grave or if you have a C? What examples would you give there?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's evaluating what, right? I mean, you think about the multiple products that you have, and at first it's starting there and going, what do we have? What are the holes in this, and what are we trying to solve for? Because it could be, is it something from service? Where is the problems that you're trying to solve, and then what can fill those gaps? Because in some cases, there's products that can solve all. There's some that are going to be very focused on a problem. So I think it really comes back to evaluate, sign up for everything, be diligent, understand what your real needs are.
Yes, but you've got to have the customer's experience as well as the salesperson or BDC's experience. Because they're going to be at different points and different intervals.
Correct.
Right? So how do you get your staff to adopt it?
The biggest part of adoption, at least what we've done, is we've rolled out AI slowly. So it's a more, we'll put it like after hours and long-term follow-up. And what that does is it gets them to see how it responds. It builds trust between the product and the salespeople or the people using it. And then you start to just turn it on a little bit more and a little bit more. And then it starts to really take off because A, it's gotten better because it's learned what's going on in your business. And then B, your people of not just, yes, we're going all in, this is what we're doing, and they're like fighting it. They're more apt to receive it because you're giving it in bits and pieces. That's been the success model that we've seen on our side.
Yeah, some of our best performing dealers have fully embraced the AI agent and customers at the point of vehicle delivery. Hey, guess what? We've got a great AI agent, Stella. She's here for you 24/7. She knows who you are. Let's do a test call so you're familiar with how to interact, and it creates a completely different experience. Doing that, you're also training your employee base to say, this is how Stella's helping us become more efficient, be able to achieve better metrics across the board. Again, some of our top performing groups are seeing real-time metrics come through every day, every week, month. They are seeing quantifiable difference between pre-AI and post-AI as a result of the efficiencies that they're putting in place.
We had this come up in our 20 group, our digital. They employed AI, and there was a lot of pushback until they realized that it was actually assisting them and not threatening their jobs.
Well, that's that would threaten someone's job. What can it replace? If we're talking about scale, like we are trying to scale the business, then that is a fundamental different approach. And that's why I say majority of the problems that we face in automation, because we don't go in with the right strategy to execute. We go in a couple different points, let the cat out of the bag, I'm trying to save money. When in reality, you will save money long run. The point is just going, do we have the right process, and then do we have the right tech to carry us the rest of the way to scale? A much different word than I'm just trying to basically cut to the race to the bottom of.
As a dealer, I'm looking at ROI. Okay. I'm certainly going to be looking at the expense, and then I'm going to be looking at how do I measure the return on that expense? What do I measure?
First of all, you've got the real-time metrics where you can see every call that came in from the AI agent. Again, that's a fixed cost, 24/7, 365, service bookings, appointments, sales, reception, where you can see what is being done without having to involve your. Now you can redeploy your human staff to go do additional incremental revenue, net incremental revenue generating activities, whether that's, again, dealing with customers in the showroom, in the service lane, or making outbound engagement calls.
And simply, I mean, metric to death. And I think at the end of the day, there's one common thing we got to get back to. Are we period? Are you moving the needle? Yes or no? Because if you're deploying your CI up, you should be servicing more vehicles, or and selling more vehicles, whether it's marketing, whatever it is you're using, something has to be the ultimate outcome that you're looking for. And if it's not, then you got to go work backwards. Hey, we're still not moving the needle. Is it us, the people? Is it the process, or is the product? I mean, it's just not, we overcomplicate everything, and we're looking for the silver bullet. And the sad part about it is no matter what you deploy, it takes work. And if your team's not bought into
it needs prompt, it needs to learn. Actually looking to get into AI, what are the questions they need to ask?
I think they should be asking what is the desired outcome that they're looking to achieve, and then using this AI agent as a tool to achieve the desired outcome. One of the most important things of using an AI is be able to, with an unlimited aspect, ingest data. So you can start to turn off different software systems and platforms and costs, use the AI agent to ingest all that data and act upon it in a proactive way to achieve measured results. The wonderful thing about AI is the way we've designed it is it's very, very configurable at the rooftop level. So you can constantly improve and modify the process flow and the information that's being exchanged with your customer. And that goes both ways, because the consumer is having a two-way, real-time, active conversation with your rooftop to drive that, to achieve that metric.
Dan, what other marketing tactics would you engage with to drive more traffic, especially with AI being used?
Talking about AI being used, that's more on the receiving end. So it's, if I have opportunities coming in, it's do I have enough to manage it? This is the bridge of that. The tactics to get more at-bats, I think it depends. You know, we get too focused on what the next person's doing, and we don't get focused on what we're doing. Because every dealership is uniquely different inventory levels, different people, different processes. So the reality to that, people come from a lot of different ways. There's cases where, hey, third-party lead providers are giving me what I need and I'm having success. Other places, paid search or social media. It's looking at the information going, what's bringing me my largest at-bat? And quite frankly, am I measuring it in a way that makes sense? Meaning, am I getting enough phone calls? Am I getting enough conversion? Those are the indicators that you're moving down the right path. Then the next piece is the AI engaging and my team engaging to get me to the actual point of sale?
Right. But when we look at the way we've done marketing, we put information out there and we wait for the customer to engage with us. Will AI give us the opportunity to engage the customer and start the conversation?
Well, it depends. I mean, you're using, like, for example, text blasting. So if I'm going outward, which, by the way, I mean, for most people in here, if you look at your database of customers and you look at for the last couple of years and you go, hey, who did we sell? People did business with us, who's never been in contact with us. There is that point of I could go and message my people with backed by AI to launch messaging and engage. So like I said earlier, you could do something like at the point of sale, I first send and execute AI. It says, hey, thank you. It checks in on the CSI. How was the experience? Then it moves later downstream into setting that first service. And it kind of becomes that what we've all been looking for is how do I keep that lifecycle management going? And I think more importantly, that is the key of where we're missing the boat is we're so focused on getting new opportunities or at bats, but we're really not paying attention to the fact that it's not as big of a margin as we think when we look at our own database and some of the things that we could be doing.
To answer specifically, absolutely. This is where the breakthrough moment is. AI is now able to read right into the DMS, CRM, and schedulers, able to see the cadence of the customer's purchase and service history, make the intercept, make the proactive communication with the customer when they opt in to be contacted. But what's really powerful, control the cadence, and you can control the relationship. AI is a friend of the dealership and a friend of the customer, so it's a relationship based on all aspects of dealership interaction, vehicle ownership, service, etc. And so that you're constantly interacting with that customer at the pace that they want, so it's not too much, not too little, the medium they want, so it's all channels, all time, based around the customer experience.
So kind of wrap things up, what do you hope to see a year from now?
I can answer that real easy. I think what you're going to see is AI is driving dealer profitability results, very measurable. It's going to happen right now because we're seeing it already today in our customer base. You're going to see customers demanding more specific interaction with AI components, and then balancing that with the human interaction where it makes sense. But for all practical purposes, this technology is in the industry. Dealers, it's measurable, it's manageable. It's not something to be afraid of or scared of. It's here to assist your bottom line results. And again, we're seeing that activity happen through this ongoing conversational relationship with our customers.
Brings back to the fact of what I look for to see is we're being more intentional, because at the end of the day, if we are better with our process and our efficiencies, then we'll have reduced expense in our marketing budgets and across the board because we're being more intentional about our deployment and how we're engaging with the consumer, which will allow us to be a lot more efficient across the board.
Great. Thank you, guys. Anybody have any questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Appreciate
everybody.
it. Thanks, everyone.
All right, wonderful. Great information. And we're going to continue in that same way. And we're going to talk about the benefits of joining a NADA 20 group. You might have been here and have heard us talk about 20 groups and some of the different 20 groups that exist. But now we're going to specifically get to the benefits of being a part of a 20 group. If you've been interested, or if you're currently in a 20 group and you want to know about all the benefits for other 20 groups, you're in the right spot. So with that being said, I'd like to welcome up Tim Fortune. He's going to go ahead and lead off and kick us off about the benefits of joining a 20 group. Tim, are you ready? Should be on.
Test.
There you are.
Right, maybe it is.
Enjoy.
Yes, sir. Come on up, guys. All right. So I want to welcome you guys. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. This is
for having us.
This is actually going to be the most comfortable 20 minutes of the NADA show for you because you get to sit down, right? And this place wears me out. But what I'd like to do is have you guys to introduce yourselves and tell us not just your name, but your dealership name, where it's located, and what you do there at the store. And then if you want to make a shameless plug for your 20 group, you can.
Go ahead, Jay.
How you doing? My name's Jay Schwartz. 5-year-old family business, based in Shrewsbury, New Jersey. So flew out here very early this morning. So work with me. I'm a little tired, and I am currently in MZ and working on getting into HN 1820 group, which is a.
And my name is Mark Rask. I'm with Kelly Buick, marketing director as well as the BDC director there at the store. We're in Central Florida. It was in a city called Bartow. It's halfway Tampa and Orlando, and I'm in a digital marketing 2020 group. It's a DM01, odds and moderator. So.
Fantastic. So, let me talk to you for just a moment, Jay. I got to be with you at your very first MZ01 meeting. I don't know if that was your first 20 group meeting, but it was your first MZ01 meeting. And, I'm sure before you went, there was a lot of apprehension of why do I need to join a 20 group? People that are sitting out here, they're saying, isn't that just a social event? Is it just something that the dealers get together and go on?
The sales, which we got to 3.91, and then Joe Shaker let us in. And the amount of accountability in the group is what really drives it. I would say these guys have helped me grow confidence. When we came into that group, I was on the bottom of the page, and I've climbed to the top of the page. What that means is we look at D page, which is your absorption, your fixed and used absorption, and then we look at our net to sales, which has grown all the way from 3.5 when we got in up to over 7.5. So very excited about that.
I want to emphasize what he just said. So he got into this group in 2019 with a 3.45%, I believe it was, net to sale, and today 1.45%. That is a heck of a return on investment. Mark, what about you? What would you say to people that are, I don't think I need to join one?
Well, they definitely need to try it and take a look at what we really do. It is definitely a think tank for several days for us in the marketing side. My group consists mainly of marketing managers, mainly from the digital world. We hold each other accountable for metrics that are revolved around marketing, which directly influences sales in both service and the sales side as well. The amount of things that I bring back, I have to always just pick 2 or 3 things to implement out of 20 that I want to, just because there's just so much to do. Now, this is the second marketing group that I've been in. I was at one in a different one called INT3 for quite some time with a different dealership. But when I came on board here, they were nice enough to let me join this, and it's paid off tremendously. And if you think there are some social times with it, but it's definitely, you'll leave there just burn out and
like drinking information through a fire hydrant, right?
Through a fire hose. Yeah, exactly. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you mentioned digital marketing groups because actually I have one. I have INT1, and as an older guy, I don't like to say old guy, but an older guy in the car business, they keep me, invigorated with information. They're so energetic. Are you guys involved in, either one of you involved in other 20 groups? I know you mentioned trying to get into, is your store, I guess, involved in any other 20
This is the only one that our store point. We're looking at service possibly. Actually, how many different 20 groups are there, and what types are there?
Well, at least you're not asking me to name them because I'm not that smart, but there are over 220 groups. And we have 20 groups for everything, from dealer principal only groups to GM groups to fixed operation managers, controllers, HR department, digital marketing and internet, collision centers, which I know Charlie was up here speaking a little while ago about the collision center groups. And so we have a plethora of groups, and I certainly couldn't name them all. So Mark, actually I was going to say Jay, but I was trying to figure out what my note was. I'm not a great note taker, but I have seen a lot of growth out of you, and we were talking about your net to sell earlier, but can you name anything specific that came out of a 20 group and attach a value to it?
So we use the composite. That looks at every single number, drilled down, really granular. And honestly, like I said before, it's the accountability, knowing that I'm going to go sit in front of 20 other dealers, and if my numbers aren't good, they're going to call me out. They're going to rip me apart. They're going to hold me accountable. And if I don't have a reason, I don't know. I had to fight to get into the 20 group. I don't want to be thrown out for not participating, but I can pick up the phone and call any of these guys with 19, 20 dealerships. They're busy guys. They pick up the phone. And I, like you said, drinking water through a fire hose, I get so many things. And in my last 20 group, my dad was actually in this 20 group 20 years ago. He didn't implement anything. Going back 10 to 15 pages of notes to pick what's really important to implement.
Sure.
I can attest to what he's saying. Like, this guy is a note taker and eager. Like, he's always eager back. You know, I chuckle whenever you say that, you know, they're going to rip you a new one for not knowing your numbers. But, you know, specifically, what are some of the things that, like, maybe they've given you direction on along the way, and you've said, you know what, my pride tells me that's not the right way to do it. I'm going to take it back, and then, you know, how did it change?
I mean, our service department was one of the biggest things that grew over this past year, but they really, my group looks at the D page, which is that absorption, and we were 60s when we got in, finished at 96% this year, and really just looking at my used cars, because that drives the profitability of the entire store. So I think that we're a used car driven store, and I finished 39th in the country for certified pre-owned vehicles out of all Mazda dealers last year.
Good job.
Do you mind sharing with the audience what kind of, I'm not talking about dollars of profit, but what kind of growth we've seen when you joined the 20 group till now, as far as percentage of increase?
Thank you. It's 729%.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that, all right? If you have a dealership, and I'm not saying 100% of that came out of your 20 group, but there is not a doubt in my mind that a lot of that came out of your 20 group. Sure. But if you have a dealership, and let's just say you made $1 million this past year, would you not want to make $5 million, $6 million? I mean, is there a reason why, you know, oh, I've got enough, I don't need it? What about you, like in digital marketing, what can you say that is something that's come out of 20 group, and how did it affect you in the store?
Well, there's actually several things. The accountability we have amongst ourselves as far as tracking ROI for our vendors and so forth. It helps us hold accountable. It helps us make sure that the advertising dollars that we're spending are really worth spending, and that they're making their maximum profit. It's really saved me lots of time in the past. So I'm the chairperson of the group, and I can reach out to my group if there's a new vendor that comes in with a new product, and I can say, hey, has anybody tried this? And I may get 3 answers saying, yeah, I've tried it, don't do it, or do it, you know. But so it saves a lot of time there, a lot of trial and error, that type of thing. And just to be honest, the camaraderie of networking that you get with that. I mean, it's just a good group. I will stress, though, that you only get out of it what you put in. You know, you have to participate. That's for sure.
That is a resounding theme up here, because you just said the same thing. You know, your dad was in one, didn't apply it, but you do, and you've seen the growth and so forth. I'm glad you mentioned camaraderie, because absolutely, to me, you know, whenever I was in a 20 group, whenever I had my dealership, before I ever went to work for NADA, you know, to me, that was the education.
Sure.
And it gave me the Cliff Notes version of the School of Hard Knocks, is what I always tell people. Why do I want to go bang my head against the wall to figure it out on my own? Somebody else has already done it. But the reason is you know who to reach out to. But if you're in a 20 group, you know exactly who to reach out to, because you can look in the composite and say, you know, right here, he's kicking butt. I'm going to call him or her, and we're going to find out exactly what it is that they did. You know, what value would you put on that camaraderie? You mentioned it.
It's priceless. I mean, the time it saves other times is just a valuable commodity as well. That maybe these people have made mistakes that I can avoid making in the past, or they've had successes that I should try. You know, I will stress that my group is a managers group, so it's a little different than an owners group. So you know, we try to stress to our members that they the owner one time a year to a managers group, to our managers meetings. We usually pick one throughout the year and say, okay, this particular one's going to be an owners meeting, try to bring your owner, even if they only come for one day. They can see that we're actually not just at a country club or something, we're actually, you know, working and doing our jobs and saving them money, which is what it's all about, and making them more money.
And certainly saving money and making money are important, but like, what about the tools? Like you mentioned the composite earlier, but do you see any value in the other tools that we offer?
Yeah, so NADA gives us the expense structures. That's kind of where I started. When I first got into the group, I said, I want my D page to look good, that absorption. Well, if my expenses are out of line, I could fix that. You know, you have all your KPIs for all the other stores. It gives you class for not only your 20 group, but the top 25 of all your franchises, dealers that are in NADA. And then you have which you probably use a lot, the NADA Analytics, which goes into all of your websites, looks at all of your leads. There's tons and tons of tools. I have many more.
Listen, there's all kinds of them. So we have the 20 Group Live, where you get to compare your data, live, real-time data to other markets or other people in your markets. You get not individuals, obviously. But, it's anonymized. But we've got the dealership workforce study, that really helps you whenever you got employees that are, looking maybe for a raise, or maybe you've got somebody that's grossly paid and you need to know, hey, am I going to be able to retain this person? But without that tool, I just don't know how dealers do it, right? The tools are just robust, they're unbelievable, and obviously, I'm singing the praises of the group. But let's end. I've got a couple minutes left, so why don't each of you give us, it can be a humorous story, it can be a heartfelt story, but something, and Mark, I'm going to let you start, but tell us something that story from your time in 20 Group.
You want me to start? I do. This is actually when I was with another dealership in INT3. I don't know if any of you know Mario Clementini or not, but he was my moderator at the time. And we were at the Aria having a meeting there, and we actually, the back wall, it was breakfast time, and we were having a working meeting during breakfast, and the back wall actually caught on fire in the middle of the meeting. It was pretty comical, and of course Mario decided to throw water on a grease fire, but
nobody accused him of being smart.
It all ended up well. We did all run out of the room with our laptops.
What about you, Jay?
So mine is personal. My favorite place on the planet's Vietnam. I had a 14-day motorcycle trip planned. I was going to go from the north to the south, my dad, my cousins, everything. I go to my first 20 Group meeting, this new MZ-01, shaking and terrified. I go up to the chair at the end and I go, hey, I got a really big trip planned. I'm going to Vietnam. He goes, oh my God, wow, that sounds absolutely incredible. I can't believe that you're going to miss that to be at our next 20 Group meeting. And I cut it short, came to that meeting, and I haven't missed a single meeting ever since, and I don't plan on it.
I love it when people come up and they've got this really good excuse. We only meet 3 times a year. And, 3 half days, or sometimes some of the groups, managers groups in particular, a day and a half. But you don't realize what the group misses when you're not there.
Sure.
And so therefore, that's why they do, really hold you accountable. They're like, hey, we plan this 2 years in advance. You know the dates. We're sorry that you scheduled a vacation for that time. We wouldn't advise you to take it. So.
Yeah. As a chairperson of our group, I make sure that we track the attendance and so forth, and from an accountability standpoint, people leaving early, that's kind of a no-no. And then when we get prospects, we make sure we really vet them from a digital standpoint, all the way down to the point where I'll sit an experienced person at dinner on either side of a prospect and try to figure out what they really know.
I'm glad you mentioned dinners. What I've found, anyway, in my experience in 20 Group, both moderating and participating, is that I got just as much out of the dinners as I did out of the meetings themselves, or the social activities. Like, some of the guys will go, do a golf trip or whatever, and somebody will come back with what I call $1 million idea, and I'm like, how'd that? I don't remember it happening in the meeting. Oh no, that was when we were on the golf course, So a lot of great things. If anyone out there is really interested, growing your business and creating lifelong camaraderie and friendships with fellow members, fellow dealers, come talk to us. There are several of the moderators here right now. But I'm Tim Fortune, and I appreciate your gentlemen's time.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, we are going to continue to have fun here at ADA Live stage. Is everybody having a great time so far? You are? I heard somebody in the back. I appreciate that. There you go. I like that. So one of the things that we always love to do at NADA is talk about new things, right? Who doesn't love to talk about new things, especially in our industry? It's very rare and unique when you have truly new things that come to the market. So I want to definitely keep with that, and we're going to sit down and have a conversation, and we're going to talk about the ENEOS Grenadier. And some of you are looking, what is that? Well, that's why we're going to tell you a little bit more about it. And so to help me with that and to join me, I have Greg. Greg, are you ready? Come on up. Where's the round of applause? You guys forgot there you go. They forgot the rules of the living room. Every now and again you have to remind them. It's okay. Please have a seat.
Thank you.
So first off, before we get started, tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Let's talk about this cool picture that's up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Greg Clark. I'm the Executive Vice President for the Americas for ENEOS Automotive. Thank you for having me up here. It's going to be a pleasure to talk about this. Typically, the way that we start off is explaining what is ENEOS. It's kind of the biggest brand you've never heard of.
Right.
ENEOS is the second largest chemical company in the world. Most consumers would not have heard of ENEOS because most consumers are not buying massive quantities of petrochemicals. We're privately held, and being the largest or second largest chemical company in the world, our owners have the sufficient capital to be able to say, right, we see gaps in the market in different places. We're starting to move into B2C businesses rather than just B2B. That particularly gave us the opportunity, or our primary stakeholder the opportunity to do, is to say, I see a gap in the market for an extraordinarily rugged, very hard-working 4x4 vehicle. And over the course of the last 5 years, that has become the ENEOS Grenadier, which we launched 60 days ago now, just around Thanksgiving of 2023. We've launched the Grenadier. We now have just over 1,000 units in operation. We've delivered about 1,400 to our dealers, and the response has been phenomenal so far.
That's great. That's a pretty good stocking stuffer, right around the holiday time for the launch, so that makes it nice, right? So
it's been a long time coming. I think we've had a lot of patient customers who've been with us on this journey for 3 or 4 years, really waiting for the Grenadier. A little bit about the vehicle itself, for those of you that may not have come across the vehicle yet.
Yes.
Internal combustion engine, so we're not an EV competitor. Of course, everybody is on a journey to electrification in one form or another. As a chemical company, we started out in 2017 really saying, well, what does a chemical company know about the construction and creation of an automobile? Not much. So the principle and the strategy from that point was to really partner with people that knew everything about creating an automobile. So Magnus Steyr, who is the of the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, been involved since the G-Wagon's birth, are our principal engineering partner. BMW is our engine and powertrain strategic partner and provider. And we've partnered with a roster of excellent tier 1 suppliers in this vehicle onto the market today. And yeah, the powertrain is phenomenal. It's BMW, which makes it pretty darn good. And that's a really key selling point for many of our Grenadier customers.
Now, with a lot of other brands launching in some untraditional ways, you guys have seemed to take a more traditional approach with launch and kind of getting out into the U.S. market. What was the strategy behind taking that more, conventional approach?
Yeah, I think it was very intentional. I think for the U.S. and the Canadian market, hyper-competitive market, very challenging, lots of excellent competitors. Primarily, we have chosen the dealer franchise model but also because I think OEMs generally, and this is but I think OEMs generally underestimate the heavy lifting that it takes to actually serve the customer, not just at the point of sale, but over the course of the lifetime of the vehicle. And so that partnership between OEM and dealers is perfectly logical for us. As a brand new entrant, and as I spoke about a minute ago, is unknown. Is a name that is not a household name by any stretch of the imagination. The equity, the support that our dealer partners bring to us is not to be underestimated. These are very well-known names in each of their communities. We've had the luxury of being able to go out and technically, hand-pick each of our franchise partners across the US and Canada. We have a complement of launch dealers we've 21 at the moment, and we're going to grow gradually, steadily, as we make sure we've proven out all of our systems, processes, and we have the production capacity to be able to feed these dealers.
That's great. So I know you specifically mentioned earlier that you chose to not come out and go with a traditional like EV model. What was the strategy, or what was the reasoning behind that of going non-EV? Because of course, as you know, our industry is kind of leading in that direction, or that's kind of been a big thing. Was there something specifically that you just chose to say, hey, this is where we're going to start and kind of go that route?
Absolutely. In principle, and first and foremost, the purpose of the vehicle is meant to be an off-road vehicle.
Okay.
It's very, very capable on-road, but it's supposed to be very, very capable off-road first and foremost. And for those people that do use it in off-road situations, being tethered literally and figuratively to a charging network is not really commensurate with what the vehicle is supposed to be. So it's an adventure vehicle. It's for people that like to go off weekends, weeks, months long, and really get off the grid, literally get off the grid. And so internal combustion engine was the logical choice for us. And clearly it's the most reliable choice, whether it's altitude. And so we will have a path over in the future to go towards electrification, but it won't be replacing internal combustion, it will be complementing.
That makes sense. And how do you continue to move that needle forward, so to speak? Because like you said, you're 60 days in right now with the launch in the US, and not yet a household name, but where do you see it in, let's say, the next 2 to 3 years? How do you make that transition to become that household name, just manufacturers that we might know?
Yeah, when you're in launch phase, 2 to 3 years lifetime away. So we're very much sort of in the 2 to 3 weeks phase. Focus on taking fast feedback from our dealers, from our customers.
Okay.
I have to say all of which, of course, I would say this because I'm biased, but I would say it's been exceptionally positive so far. We've been very validated and gratified by the response from customers and from dealers. But there's work to do. There will be continuing work to do. At the moment, the focus is making sure that we have stability in processes, that we're listening to both customers and dealers to improve those processes, to introduce the Grenadier to more and more people. We have an order bank of about 9,000 at the moment, which is basically a pent-up order bank that we've built over 2 or 3 years that is going to take the best part of a year to deliver. We are the largest region in the world already, which we are largest in terms of total industry volume, so naturally we would be largest, but the focus is on very much making sure that we are delivering to those customers that have been waiting. After that, if we look further ahead, which is difficult for us to do, we have a pickup derivative of the Grenadier coming. That's within calendar year 24.
Okay.
And then we're working on the second and then third model lines because INEOS, we are quite long-term, quite strategic in that the company approaches things. So we have a 10, 15, 20-year horizon where we're bringing further vehicles to the market.
Fantastic. And then what about, because of course, you know, the dealer infrastructure and support. I know you mentioned you were able to kind of go through and hand select some of your dealer franchises. What does the experience look like for, you know, these users that have been waiting, they've now taken delivery? Are they able to get the full dealership experience as far as all of the other aspects that we talked about elemental-wise of the dealership?
Absolutely. And that was critical for us when we were working with each of our partners. We spoke, I think, to maybe 150 or about 150 different groups in terms of interest in the INEOS franchise. What was really critical for us is that we actually had that level of service. And these are mature, often multi-franchise dealer partners that have had experience across many different franchises, whether they're imported, domestic, or otherwise. So making sure that the INEOS is a dedicated experience from a sales and service perspective is very important. It's important for us as it's important for other brands to make sure that they really focus from their dealer partners on those franchises. So every one of our dealerships across the country and into Canada offer independent sales and service. We have a separate team that is trained both on the sales and service side to be able to support just the Grenadier. Now, sometimes there is shared services from a back-of-house perspective, but nevertheless, we've taken the time to make sure that we have partners that have really the bandwidth to be able to dedicate to a new startup. Because working together with them, we're doing something that a friend of mine to actually launch in a rocket. There's a huge amount of energy getting the rocket actually off the ground and into orbit.
Yes.
And then there's a lesser amount of energy fine-tuning to make sure that it stays in a positive orbit. We're still in that getting it out of the atmosphere stage. Launch has been huge. but it's been really successful. And as I said, it's resulted in more than 1,000 units in customers' hands in the last days. We'll continue to do that, and we'll aim to probably get between 8,000 and 10,000 more out in calendar year 24.
Okay, good. And how do you see yourself with the launch and everything being successful? How do you see that's going to impact in the competitive space? Because there, of course, right now are other brands or vehicles that market that off-road, kind of rugged lifestyle. What's some of the things that you can see that is going to set the Grenadier apart once it's been, like you kind of mentioned, tested and tried and all of that?
It's sort of it's a vehicle that is kind of touched on the zeitgeist at the moment, and whether this is sort of post-pandemic pragmatism, people want to get off-road, off the grid. There are some wonderful products there. I mean, certainly if you look at what's happening right now with Wrangler, Bronco, and now Land Cruiser, territory in the 50s and 60s, you know, that's a punch-up. That's a bit of a slugfest with high volume. That's not us.
Right.
We are very niche, very focused. We are very small volume, as I've said. Customer that wants something that's especially rugged, that sits of that mass market. Our starting price is $71,500. But with that BMW powertrain, all of the capability of the Grenadier, 21st century technology where it's appropriate.
Yes.
But definitely some analog nostalgia from the 20th century, switches, things that are immediately 3 levels down in an infotainment system.
Nice.
So that's kind of what we appeal to, customers that have a bit of nostalgia for that.
Okay.
And want something which is a very purposeful off-road tool, very specialist tool, but is actually something that you can comfortably do 6 or 7 hours in on a highway.
That's great. So I think that's a big thing that you mentioned is really having the specific focus of being able to drill down and say, I'm using this vehicle for this, but I also have the ability to use it for other things. So with that being a kind of differentiating factor, when you talk about launching here in the U.S. and then ultimately both, how do you see with involving more dealers? I think maybe you have some dealer principals out there that are interested or learning more. How does the growth process look, or how can people get more involved in EOS and, you know, that process?
Yeah, and that process takes time.
Yeah.
And when we were looking at the right partners, we took a lot of time. We wanted to make sure they were very, very intentional choices from both sides. That process takes time. It will evolve through 24 and into 25. Our focus is squarely at the moment on the launch partners that we have at the moment and working together with them to make sure that we're addressing anything that comes up that wasn't expected. So our commitment is firmly to them and to the customers that are waiting. And I mentioned we got 9,000 of them just waiting out there. They're very patient, that we're looking forward to delivering the Grenadier to. But the process of expanding the network has to come eventually.
Right.
It has to be sustainable. It's got to be organic. It's got to be supported by our production capacity, because they are hungry mouths. Continue to be hungry as we generate more and more awareness and demand for the Grenadier.
Nice. And you mentioned hand selecting and picking those partners. What were some of the things that went into that selection process? Because of course we're here. There's tons of dealers, right? And so how did you guys go out and specifically pick those dealers? And was it you going to the dealer, or was there an interest that was created by the dealer and them coming to you? How did that process work?
It's a little. I mean, there were definitely dealers that were very aware of us from the very, very beginning and were hand raisers early on. I couldn't say exactly what the mix was of those that were aware and came to us versus those that we went out and actively solicited. The commonality is that we have a huge amount of interest in the Grenadier, see the market opportunity, that they have an outstanding reputation service, because this is a customer that's got anger, that's going to break things, and so the ownership experience has to be really positive, supported by top quality service, after-sales support, parts and accessories care. Geographically, yes, be in the right places. So we had hand raisers certainly that were from places that were interesting, but interesting for the future. And so there are geographies where we issued reservations from to begin with, who were our original customer hand raisers, and we gravitated towards those places because we wanted to be able to serve those customers first, but we had to find the right partners that existed in those places. And there were some geographies where we chose not to go. We wanted to go, but we chose not to go because we just couldn't find the right partner for us at that time.
Makes sense.
We'll address that over the course of time, probably into 24 and into 25. But yeah, the process was probably the most intentional and the most important one that we will have decisions that we will have made, because of our brand at customer level. And we want to make sure that they are as supportive of us as they are the customers. And that really symbiosis is up to us to support, and it's a great responsibility to be able to have to support that dealer network as well. So very seriously.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned 60%, right? Is there any personal testimonies that you've heard from, those that have taken had the opportunity to get the vehicle out in its element and really enjoy it? Anything that you want to share that you maybe a little anecdotal story that you heard or anything?
Well, yeah, it's we've spent a lot of time in direct conversation with our end customer.
Okay.
And I just 2 nights ago we did a webinar. This is a great forum. Basically, there's a community of customers that have already grown that were doing meetups before they'd ever taken delivery of their Grenadiers, which is great.
Yes.
It's a lot of enthusiasm and passion out there. What they've told us, I think, is capability-wise and substance of the Grenadier has exceeded their expectations. They saw it, they drove it on some of our familiarization events, but actually getting out there into the desert, into wherever they go with it, and using the vehicle for what it's intended to, they've just had a massive amount of pleasure from that. Not only themselves in the driver's seat, but with their families along for the ride as well. Camping, overlanding, whatever they've gone out to do. So I think that's the purchase, the intention of this is not the Grenadier sitting in the driveway, it's what the Grenadier actually enables them to go out and do.
Nice. Now, I know one of the big off-road outdoor things that just recently happened was King of the Hammer. Were you guys able to have a presence there or any interactions there?
Not this time, but it's on the radar. Yeah, it's of interest, and there's so many different things that we'd love to go out and do. There is something, again, coming back to that principle of being quite intentional about what we do.
Yes.
The focus is folks that have been with us on this journey.
Okay.
Going out there and then banging the drum and effectively and generating more demand is something for us to do later in 2024.
Okay.
We're very conscious that we have to continue that journey of generating awareness, filling the top of the sales funnel, and making sure that there are more and more customers familiar with the Grenadier. But that's not now. That's a little bit later. We've got to focus very much on our dealers and our customers first.
And so what I hear you saying, the biggest takeaway and one of the advantages of INEOS and the Grenadier is that it's specifically built for specific customers that have a focus and desire that they want to fulfill, but ultimately it is a very versatile concept and vehicle.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely right. The principle of this vehicle was it was built on purpose to be very, very off-road capable. We recognized that has to be pragmatic. You've got to be actually appropriate for everyday life. There are some folks that use this as a daily driver, and it's very, very capable at doing exactly that. But on the weekend, or whether you take it away for a month or so, it's exceptionally capable off-road.
Fantastic. Well, Greg, thank you so much for your time. We
Well,
definitely appreciate it. And I'm excited. I mean, the picture looks great, and at least when I see it on the road, I'll know. I know what that is.
We get asked that a lot. Hey, what is that thing? So it's a pleasure to be able to tell that story. It's a pleasure to be able to share that with you and everybody here today. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've been working for car dealers for just about 30 years. I love the spirit. I love the entrepreneurship. It's really one of the last true American dreams. I'm Mike Stanton, President and CEO of NADA. As most of you probably know, NADA exists for two primary reasons. Number one, to educate, and number two, to advocate for our dealer members. The key value that NADA provides for dealerships, we've got a lot of dealerships that are members of NADA. Over 90% of dealerships belong to NADA. So with that kind of power, we can take your voice to Capitol Hill, to Congress, to the administration, and to our manufacturers.
When we advocate on behalf of dealers, we look at potentially all three branches of government. And that actually has played out with the vehicle shopping rule. NADA filed extensive comments explaining why the proposed rule was very problematic for consumers. That resulted in several revisions which will help dealers, but it did not go far enough. NADA is supporting legislation to negate the rule, and NADA also has filed a judicial challenge against the rule.
The Biden administration's EPA has proposed that by model year 2032, 67% of all new vehicle sales be fully battery electric. We think that's too far, too fast. NADA believes that a more balanced approach is not only going to be achievable, but better for the environment. Consumer demand has got to catch up with political aspirations. We take your voice and we meet with the White House. We meet with Congress. We talk to the IRS. We've talked to the EPA. Rest assured, NADA has your back. Together, we move this industry further. So if you're not engaged, please get. We're here to help you do just that. We're glad you're here at the NADA show. It's a great opportunity to learn from each other, develop new relationships, and grow. Thank you.
Learn and grow, right? It's a great opportunity, and that's exactly what NADA is all about. It's about getting the information that you need and having that opportunity to take something back home with you. And so we want to continue in that vein, and we also want to look ahead. So we're going to talk about the dealership of tomorrow, how that looks. And to help me do that, I'd like to invite Glenn Mercer up. Glenn, are you ready? All right, stage is yours. Let's give him a big round of applause.
We're on. Okay, good. I'm giving the movie version of this presentation. Takes about 2 hours. TV adaptation is at 4 o'clock today in 45 minutes. Consider this the trailer. We won't even touch on the inside the store topics today, but just the outside of the store and the challenges facing it. So let's just get right into it. Introduction. This is my, the disclaimer up front, this is my own work. None of this should be construed as the official opinions of NADA. NADA retained me in late 2016 to do the first version of this. We thought it would be a one-off for the 2017 show, but by popular demand, it comes back every year. So we're going to look back in this presentation a little bit 7 years because history is important, and then also ahead sort of kind of 7 years. For those international guests here, this is relevant only to the United States. All marketing, all retailing is local at some point, and so I'm not going to say any of this applies to, say, Europe. And we don't even have 45 minutes, so we'll just keep going. I'll leave out all the social and political stuff, and we're just going to focus on automotive retail. And if you're a glutton for punishment, I have a Substack you can read. I find it very useful if you have trouble falling asleep. I'll be up to one joke per trend. But no more. The acknowledgments, as always, is I don't do primary research. I don't do surveys myself, et cetera, et cetera. For those of you who are photographing this, by the way, there's a version of it available to download from the NADA app. I steal stuff from other analysts who do real work, and I would ask you to go to them and read stuff, the primary stuff. It's how they earn their living. Any mistakes in interpretation are my own. I'll skip that, and we'll just move ahead. The first thing I'll say, I have 5 themes. The first one is change is always with us, always has been. I reject completely and possibly heretically the idea that we're engaging in or living in a world of more rapid change now from an automotive retailing perspective than we have in the past. I don't think so. It's been like this every single year. Every NADA convention I've come to has had an existential crisis going on, whether Auto by Tel would disintermediate every dealer in America, or whether the public dealership chains would wipe out family ownership, et cetera, et cetera. It just goes on, and every year we learn something from it, and every year we, meaning the dealer body and the affiliated industries, adapt, absorb the threat, and move on and thrive. So just looking in the 1980s, the transplants were built all around America. We had a southern drift in population and manufacturing. We decided to get into M&A. Let's go buy Volvo. Let's go buy Jaguar and Land Rover. Let's sign up with Isuzu and Suzuki. By the 1990s, the Korean import wave had appeared. All of America woke up one day and decided they wanted a pickup truck. Daimler Chrysler was formed, taking the best part of 2 companies, the Dime from Daimler and the Lure from Chrysler. That's a small joke. 9/11, of course, was a big challenge for us, and the Great Recession. 2 out of our 3 national champions went bankrupt. Isn't that enough change for you? And on and on. And of course, we skip right now to the present. It's EV, EV, and now China. So just repeating again that I think as you hear from any media outlet at this point in time, don't worry, no mainstream anti-media rant here, to put things in perspective in terms of our ability to adapt to change. And it has been a rotating cast of changes and threats and opportunities, as you can see from this slide, and we'll go through some of them today. That's my second point, is each year it's something different. But the past ones are still with us and they mutate as well. Point 3 is some of them have receded. The threat, the existential threat, as it were, of autonomous vehicles has receded. The existential threat of mobility services, such as Uber and Lyft, has receded. I'll spend more time on these. Some of the opportunities have become murkier, I would say. Connected car, which we thought of mostly an upside opportunity a few years ago, is now looking a little more complicated. And then, of course, there are vehicles which have moved from an interesting niche to broad-based, and that is a mixture of threat and opportunity. And then the fifth point is some new ones have emerged, channel changes, shifts attempted by OEMs relative to the relationship with the dealer channel. And of course, if you are from overseas, you know that a lot of this has been going on in Europe, much less so here. And then, of course, the rise of China in terms of at least 3 dimensions, which I'll get into. Okay, off we go. Hot topics. I'll skip that. Okay, mobility services, ride-hail mostly. I'm not talking here about scooters and things, though we keep an eye on so-called micro-mobility. But yesterday, here was the threat. Uber CEO Travis Kalanick says car ownership is passé. Millennials aren't buying cars. They do not want to drive. They do not want to own cars. 2017 Newsweek. Today, Uber has reached the mighty goal of being less than 0.5% of all personal car trips in the United States from their own statistics. I think we've absorbed this one. They're a useful part of the choices you have for mobility services, but the challenge to personal ownership has receded. The reason for the cross out there is somewhere along the line, I must have missed the memo, we stopped calling it transportation and started calling it mobility, which apparently adds to the valuation multiple somehow. But anyway, it's one more mobility service, rental cars. Hertz was founded in 1918. I'm sure in 1918, car companies were worried that rental cars would destroy personal ownership, et cetera, et cetera. And to prove this point, as opposed to just being my opinion at you, this chart has not been updated yet because the census data for 2022 is not out. But after more than a decade of ride-hail services in these major metropolitan areas in the United States, ownership of vehicles, this is cars per household, personally owned cars per household, has gone up rather than down. So you'd think if you were in ground zero in San Francisco, ground zero for mobility services, where in 2010 the average household had 1.7 cars, after 15 years of scooters, e-bikes, Lyft, and Uber, this number would have gone down. It has gone up. And then as far as the millennials, I'll skip the millennial part. The next thing is micro-mobility. We're keeping an eye on this. This is for, in the future, not quite yet here in the United States, where we're getting mixed messages on small mobility as an option relative to large vehicles. Of course, in Europe, it has really taken off, so we're keeping a close eye there. But again, mixed messages in the United States, where we're seeing a surge in the purchase and usage of bicycles, but actually a decline in the usage of bicycles for commuting. And then, of course, subscriptions, which sort of rise and fall over time. They were big a few years ago, decline, sort of coming back again. Again, Europe leads the way in subscriptions. We do not see this yet here as a major challenge for us. Appears to be mostly an ultra-short lease, and we haven't really seen much of this catch on, but still looking at it. I would point you to Augustin Friedel on LinkedIn, who covers both micromobility and subscriptions, especially in Europe, very, very well. Apparently, to run a subscription service, you must have a very strange name. So that may be why we haven't done more of it here. We're running out of strange names. Net on the mobility services, neutral to car ownership and sales in the United States, moderate upside, moderate downside. Autonomous vehicles, another challenge. Yesterday, 2012, Sergey Brin, who is a smart person, co-founder of Google, you may have heard of them, said you'll ride in robot cars within 5 years. No, you will not. This hasn't happened, but is still moving along, and we'll go into detail. Today, we have the interesting sort of dichotomy of Waymo's technology works, but doesn't make any money. Tesla's technology doesn't work, but they make a lot of money selling it to customers for its eventual working in the future. By my calculations, which are not sanctioned by anyone else, Waymo had 700,000 rides this year, which off without a hitch, and lost $4,000 on each ride because they have an annual burn rate of $3 billion. That will have to come down a bit before this business model works. Tomorrow, what do we see for autonomous vehicles? High functionality, I don't get into the SAE levels, but high functionality, truly autonomous vehicles, robotaxis gaining ground versus taxis and a ride hail, but at what cost? Remember, the competition for a robotaxi is a minimum driver and an 8-year-old Hyundai, and it's very, very hard to invest in all the technology that goes into a robotaxi and meet that competitive challenge. And then further, against the personal car, where the key point in economics I'll make there is that the owner of the personal car does a lot of the work for free, drives the car for free, cleans the car or not for free, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a hard nut to crack. Medium functionality AVs, Super Cruise, and things like that become options for premium personal ownership. We're already seeing that. Why would I share a robo-taxi with some smelly former rider? Why not own one myself? And then, of course, low functionality ADAS is completely ubiquitous. To show the dichotomy we're facing in autonomous vehicles, I encourage you to look at Rod Brooks's blogs. At MIT. Rodney has been studying robotics since literally the 1950s, and in 2017 he had the foresight to collect forecasts for autonomous vehicles that various people had made. Ford CEO said fully autonomous vehicles for mobility services companies would be on the road from Ford in 2021. See all these different predictions in 23. All of them have failed. Every single one that had a date before 2024 have failed. The one in arrows are the predictor pushed it out a few years, and the ones in blue, which you can't really see, we haven't gotten there yet. So if you look at this and you say, this is dismal, it turned out to be really, really, really hard to do autonomous vehicles. As the old joke goes, and autonomous vehicles are around long enough that we actually have old jokes about them, after you get the first 95% of AV right, you only have 95% to go, because it's all edge cases after that, as we've seen in San Francisco. On the other hand, we have made real progress. To be fair, public robotaxi services in the United States have proliferated. Unfortunately, this slide was locked down late last year, and Cruise is currently on pause. And motional and mobility use safety drivers, so really can only count Waymo as a success here, but moving along, it's just at an incredible burn rate. So, sorry, onward. How hard can it be, anyway, to drive autonomously? I watched this video a lot. Apparently an orangutan can do it, but we haven't yet figured out how to do it with a computer. Connected car. So those are the first two where I think we can say, not in terms of how they will succeed in terms of a technology or a business model. Obviously, Uber has figured out how to do ride hail. Obviously, Waymo has figured out the technology of autonomous vehicles. But as challenges or threats to the event going on in this building, we'd say they've receded. Other ones have become sort of murkier. Connected car is the first one I'll mention here. Yesterday, for those of you who are as old as I am, this is called telematics. And it was launched as early as 2000 or so, were the first telematics initiatives. You may remember an old Goldman Sachs report from that year that Marianne Keller, the late great Marianne Keller, had flagged because it said that OnStar was worth more than all the rest of General Motors. It's great how these things come back over and over again, because a few years ago we were saying Cruise was worth more than the rest of General Motors too. Anyway, at the time, the first time around, the immature technology didn't quite work, connectivity was a problem, etc. Software was unreliable. And then as the technology matured, this is where the car companies kind of fell asleep at the wheel, and this is a bad situation that occurred. I'm not knocking them, they all missed this, but the tech firms on the left coast seized all three major connected car revenue streams. The phone, the cell phone, the smartphone took over communications in the car. I used to own an Acura NSX with an actual installed car phone branded by Acura. Those are long gone. It's just give me a Bluetooth connection to the phone. All that revenue left the car. Music, which used to generate revenue for car companies. I'll say an AM radio, an AM FM radio, a cassette radio, a CD, et cetera, et cetera. Now it is again just give me a Bluetooth connection. That went off to Spotify and Apple iTunes, et cetera, and the navigation moved from folding maps and maybe some CDs in a trunk-mounted changer to personal navigation devices, Garmin's and TomToms and bead mags up on the dashboard. And now again, it is just let me connect Waze or whatever to my Android Auto. Our current OEMs have said, we missed all three of these huge revenue streams. We will not let it happen again. We shall see. Today, connectivity is ubiquitous and the apps are mature, so we're kind of ready for the return of connected car. Where do we see it going? Well, the OEMs push connected car features very aggressively, seeking enormous recurring revenues, hoping customers will pay and that they themselves will not compete away all the profits. The question here, and this is why this gets murkier for people in this building, is will OEMs fairly share connected car revenue with dealers on the front line? As in, we want the dealer to help teach the customer and how the different features work, and if one of them breaks, then the dealer will fix it. But on the other hand, we prefer that the revenue stream flow only to Stuttgart or Nagoya. That's where we're getting a little edgy. So. Charts like this from Eagle Juliuson here, for example, this is where the car companies start racking up all these dollars. They dream of recurring revenues. They'd rather make money a little bit every week like Netflix does than sell you something for $60,000 once every 7 years. So we see all these projections, some of them working very well, such as usage-based insurance, others not so well. But then we get statements like this from the OEM saying this is going to be a huge amount of our income going forward. So that's the happy hope and expectation. The battle really is, if you're an optimist, you say customers are familiar with paying for subscriptions of all kinds, Netflix or whatever, also relying on the fact that the average American is up to something like 6 subscriptions, only 3 of which they remember paying for, and the other 3 are draining their bank account while they sleep. So can we do that? Or the pessimistic view is no, customers will only pay for above and beyond. They don't want Ford's version of Spotify. They want something better and different, and they'll pay for that. Car Wi-Fi. And will the OEMs just give it away? Because the easiest way for Mercedes to sell a few more cars than BMW without discounting the price of the car is to give away the software suite. We shall see. Okay. This is my winning app for connected car, Pay to Exit. You get somewhere, you turn off the car, and it will not let you out until you pay $5 on your credit card. I think this is a real future, but so far no one has returned my calls. Next up, we're not talking about it today, but the next up in this area is the software-defined vehicle. No comment on it today, but we're trying to keep track on it. The source is kind of important here. This is what happened when I asked ChatGPT what a software-defined vehicle was. Very good work by ChatGPT, which maybe tells you where we're headed. Thank you, Robot Overlord. And again, Augustine Friedel has good coverage on this. I think a crucial thing with a software-defined vehicle is to remember that it's not necessarily all customer-facing. Okay, electric vehicles. You've probably heard about this topic. You've probably heard about this topic so much. I think it's kind of the pundit, analyst, and consultants full employment act for 2024. So just for fun, guess what? I don't think we should talk about it. You're going to hear so much about it here today, you know, that maybe we can skip one more lecture. Oh, I can't resist. Why not? Okay. Yesterday, it was really 2 small niches in the United States, the incumbent OEMs at low-cost, short-range urban runabouts like Leaf. And then, of course, the new guys on the block, Tesla, saying no, instead of coming in from the low end of the price range, which, by the way, is the classical definition of disruption, will come in at the high end with long-range premium vehicles. But today now, as things have emerged and changed, we have a struggle between supply push and demand pull. We'll go into that in a little bit of detail. As far as the future goes, everybody has opinion on electric vehicles, but my opinion will be that the trajectory is still up. There is a world of difference between the rate of growth slowing and growth stopping or reversing. That is not what is happening here, though the press seems to kind of somehow read slower growth as as growth reverses. Government push is long-term pro-EV, short-term dependent on politics. At a part of the conference this morning, we heard people from Cox and others said that if a certain president gets elected, we'll probably flatline EV penetration for the next few years, but still looking possibly at 30% by 2030. If a different president gets elected, maybe we're at 12, 14% over the next few years. So a lot of it depends on politics. I will not attempt to predict that. The customer base is evolving from premium male techie buyers to mass market, family-oriented drivers and passengers or shoppers. There's a difference between buyers, as in I'm going to line up and buy your car, to I'm going to shop around and maybe you can sell me one. And of course, the chasm we try to get across right now, and this is EV specialized area here, talking about this, is the gap, the chasm between the profitable ICE and the unprofitable, for now, mostly EV. So, electric vehicles, growing share? Yes, no, both. Up to you which one you want to use. This is BEV share only. If you look at the left-hand side of the chart, you say it's growing. You look at the right-hand side, you say we have paused. I'll let you figure out which one you want to believe in. The reasons cited for slower growth, you do not need to hear more and more about price, range, charging, politics, etc. So never mind. My view, though, is, as always, it's the product. For many, BEVs have been the wrong product. As I think it was Jonathan Smoke said this morning, nobody has a problem with their gasoline car that they're thinking, how can I fix the problem with this gasoline car? If there was something out there to fix that problem. We don't have a problem. We have an environmental, social, society level problem, but at the level of the personal owner, there's no problem that an EV solves for someone who owns gasoline. So we have to change this if we're going to go forward. So BEVs have evolved from vehicles people buy to vehicles we must sell. And JD Power has pointed out, Tesla cut its average transaction price $27,000 in 1 year and barely moved their market share. So that tells me it's the product. If the price can come down that far, and that's, so for the average American car, they'll be cutting its price in half. And not seeing demand really move much. And those of you who just saw the California Car Dealers Association report just come out that in the fourth quarter of 2023, Tesla in California sold fewer cars than it did in the fourth quarter of 2022. Again, telling you there's a product problem. It's not a broad enough product line in this case. I owned a 3, I bought a Y, where do I go to next? We'll leave Cybertruck aside. And remember, those of you who think it's slowing, the United States is on track to buy about 1.5 million EVs in 2023, the same as 2016 combined. Okay, my take is the rest of the world leads, U.S. must follow. We are used to being ahead of the game in the United States. That has now changed. It used to be, well, I got to design my car to sell in America or I really won't be able to hit my volume targets. Well, now I can hit my volume targets in China and Europe and have to worry so much about the United States, where the only thing that's designed really for here now is either giant SUVs or pickup trucks. So with OEMs competing globally, if they're designing for the world, they will not necessarily give up on designing EVs for the United States. I'll skip that. Impact on dealers, I'm just going to flip through the big issue here is that we go into some depth later on today is what does this mean for fixed operations? I think this is one thing that's turned more green from red as we realize the impact on service ops is likely to be much more modest than we expected it to be. There were too many people a few years ago saying, well, the electric motor only has one moving part, and so therefore service revenue will vaporize. Has not turned out to be the case. If you heard Group 1's recent earnings call, when they announced fourth quarter earnings, they are still registering higher repair order counts, dollars per repair order for EV than for ICE. So, but I'll just flip through it. You can come back for 4 o'clock, you want all this detail. For instance, from one dealer group, I asked them for their data. In each case, the first bar is ICE customer pay, and then the red bar is EV customer pay. Then we have ICE warranty, dark blue, EV warranty, light blue. Then we have the sum of the two, ICE dark black and EV gray. GM comparing Cruise and Volt, which is not necessarily a fair comparison. Nissan, Sentra, and Leaf, and Toyota, which shouldn't have an EV in the fight at the time, Corolla and Prius. In every single case, the electrified vehicle showing more dollars per RO to get fixed so far. And this is entirely contradictory to everything we believe, but Cox does good data, and that the EVs are coming more service visits per year than ICE. Why is that? Probably a lot of it is debugging, and it'll get better, and this number will change, but right now the reality is this. And then we talked to the Norwegians because, of course, they are loaded with EVs, and I will skip that. What happens if we do not address it is the aftermarket will fill the gap. The share of total repair and maintenance that American dealers have had peaked in 1960 at about 45%. It's been on a long, slow slide down to 10%. It will drop further if we let the aftermarket come after EVs. And the aftermarket is incredibly inventive. I will only flag this one thing here. You didn't think that your EV needed fluid changes? Well, Castrol would beg to differ. We have EV transmission fluid specialty from Castrol. And if they can market it, they'll try to sell it. Okay. Okay, now slow it down just a little bit to finish up. Channel change. This is the one of the last things here. Yesterday, mostly a non-issue. In the United States, when we looked at the channels that vehicles were sold in, the incumbents were all dealer-enabled, and there was one outlier, Tesla, direct-to-customer. Today, the USA is stable in this regard. The world is changing rapidly with agency all over Europe, of course, and Australia and elsewhere, usually described as agency, cited motives to lower cost, to set prices, to connect to customers. Germany has almost twice as many BMW dealers as America has, but it has 1/4 of the population. Thus, intra-brand competition is intense, and agency allows control of price and makes sense in that marketplace. Tomorrow, we'll see how it is implemented around the world. In the United States, the urge to implement agency has receded as inventories have started building. You've seen all the media coverage that VinFast back here has decided to sign up dealers, and so is Fisker, because when you've got a few 100,000 cars on boats that you're on your books, your view on dealers changes. We'll skip agency. We surveyed people. At DeBoer, Brian DeBoer at Lithia in the middle here says thinks 5 to 10% of volume via agency 2035 is possible. Roger Penske, who also knows what he's talking about, says it will not happen at all. You get to pick. Really quickly, we'll skip this one. Stay tuned for more announcement on that. We'll skip Hyundai Amazon, except how you return the car is a little harder with Amazon than with regular intelligence. We'll skip. Told you this is the trailer version, and we'll just go to China. Of course, we know China is a challenge to the world in terms of control of battery materials processing, and now is a challenge to the world in terms of exporting, just like Japan did at one point and Korea did at the next point. By the way, a lot of this growth is ICE volume. This is not all EVs, and a lot of it is to Russia because nobody wants to sell cars in Russia anymore after they invaded Ukraine, but China seems to have no problem. So I would say the line is up faster than we might have expected, but it is still growing, of course. It's not like we weren't warned. The Chinese announced they were going to do this over about a decade ago. Enormous cost advantages. And crucially, I'll skip this and go to a summary of this, because I have less than a minute to go. Changing the base of competition. What I mean by that is 900-volt cars. Cars with 10 screens in them, cars with a screen on the headliner so it's above you, the BYD car which can launch a drone from its roof, other cars with refrigerators on board, and the BYD innovation I thought was really cool. You put Grand Theft Auto on the screen in the car, you park the car in the game mode, and now the pedals and the wheel are no longer connected to the car, but they're connected to the screen, and you can play life-size GTA in your car from your driver's seat. I have no idea if this will work or if it'll sell, but boy, it is creative and it's changing the base of competition. To summarize where we are, if you are watching those little traffic lights in the corner all the way along, all the lights were yellow. Many threats have receded. We don't have any red lights blinking. Some opportunities have turned murky. We don't have any green lights either. And other trends' impacts depend on external factors not yet clear. You predict how AI is going to go. You predict how politics are going to go, for example. Receded threats were these two, murkier threats these, and these are still unclear. But to end right now, because I'm at negative time, which is always a great concept, I went on eBay and I bought the Automotive News Almanac from 1958. I'm going back to where I started this talk 28 minutes ago. These are headlines from 65 years ago, again, to reassure you that almost everything we see in this industry, we've seen some version of before. We can learn from the past how to deal with it this time around. Experts say car safety regulation may be on the horizon. Could be. DeSoto introduces See and Drive pop-up shops at shopping centers. I thought pop-up shops were a new idea. Okay, 65 years ago we had temporary stores at shopping centers from DeSoto. Of course, it didn't work out for DeSoto. General Motors is in court over fairness of dealer termination. Sorry, I couldn't avoid one cheap shot. Imported car volumes surging, so to only 3% of sales. And then Chrysler introduced, available in this model, an automatic accelerator, sort of a primitive cruise control for highway use called, thank you.
All right, once again, let's give Glenn a round of applause. Great information, looking into the insight of the dealership of tomorrow. We're going to continue to kind of move the conversation forward, and specifically, we want to talk and give you the opportunity to learn more about multi-franchise dealer groups. It's a very unique and very fun dealer group to discuss, and to help me do that, I'd like to welcome up Joel Dabo. Joel, are you ready? No, you're not ready? Okay, that's cool. I'll wait for you. If you need me to wait, I'll wait. Come on up, Joel. Let's give him a round of applause. They didn't hear they didn't hear. I thought I
not ready.
Right, yeah, they heard you say you're not ready. That's okay. It's all right. Well, welcome back. We're back again. Again. Yes. So before we get, I know who you are, but maybe not everyone else knows who you are. So take time, introduce yourself, and talk about your role with NADA.
Okay. All right. My name is Albo, as you said, and I am a 20 group moderator, dealer management consultant. And I've been with NADA for 8 years in the automobile field for a long time. And so the thing I'm here to talk about is 20 groups. That's what I do, multi-franchise 20 groups.
Absolutely. So tell us, just right off the bat, what separates a multi-franchise 20 group versus maybe just a traditional 20 group?
Excellent question. All right, so we all know or may know or maybe or some of you out there are in a traditional 20 group, which is generally the same brand. So you may be a Honda or a Buick GMC or another brand, and the same dealers in that group, all in non-competing markets, and it's peer-to-peer learning where they help each other get better over years. If you're not performing, I would ask why you're not performing. And if you give me the answers, then I will ask Jero, you're really doing really well. What do you say? That's traditional. What multi-franchise, to be in a multi-franchise group, you have to have 3 or more rooftops, be a C-level manager or higher, so COO, CFO. You cannot be a general manager or a single store within that group manager because the meetings would have no meaning to you. We don't drill down what's happening in your parts department of one Nissan store on the other side of town. That's not what multi-franchise does.
So what do they specifically do? Because that's a great point, and that sounds like we're having higher level conversations. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that you're seeing, come out of even the end of 23 or as we anticipate 24, mm-hmm. What do those conversations look like?
Well, the conversations are more, like you just said, high level from running the entire group. It may be especially how to manage, what does your structure look like, your management structure? As expenses and inflation pops in, what managers do you need to keep in your structure? Do you need a platform manager, but over how many stores? So if you own, say, 10 or 12 stores, do you need one platform manager for 5 and one for the other 5, or do you need one over 10? And those are the discussions that we have in the meetings at very high level, which is completely, again, different from regular 20 group.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so some of the things that we've heard just throughout the day today is when we're talking about the dealership environment as a whole, creating that culture, right? When you have a multi-franchise 20 group, how then does the culture vary, or how do you address the culture over those multi-franchises? Because as you can imagine, franchise is going to look a lot different from a consumer base than the other. How does that something that's navigated, and is that discussed?
That is a very common discussion on a regular basis. So one of the things we'll use as an agenda item would be, what's the dealership vision, right? Do you have a vision statement? Do you even know what you want your dealer group to be? It has to start from the owner. And then to develop that culture, everyone has to be on the same page. You know, it's no different than when you're looking at a football team or managing a football team, this week being at the Super Bowl. Looking at the whole team and how to structure the team, or how to manage the culture of that team. Is it a winning culture? What do you do to make sure you're performing at the highest level? And that's what most of the discussions turn out to be.
So what about those dealers that are transitioning, going from conventional to maybe I want to be multi-franchise? Maybe I'm looking at, I have 2 right now and I'm looking to acquire that 3rd. How then do you prepare them to make that transition?
Well, excellent question, because that is I think one of the biggest values of being in multi-franchise, whether you're at 2 and you want to get to 3. So the hardest thing I think everyone knows is running one car dealership. If anyone here thinks it's easy, raise your hand, because it's not. Not one.
Looking for hands.
No hands.
No hands,
anybody?
okay.
Nobody. All right, so start going to 2, troubles double. Sorry, they do. And then you say, well, we want to expand. We start looking at another store somewhere. Now you have to make a decision. Is it within a certain distance? Is it in your market? Or do you want to go to another state? Well, if you want to go to another state, you think it's different now. How do you manage across state lines, different state laws? Everything is further away. You have to change everything you think. So right away, those are the things that you have to think about when you want to expand. And it's always discussed in our groups.
Absolutely. And what about dealers? Do you ever see dealers that are maybe in the group that have considered scaling back? Like maybe they have 10, like you mentioned, and they're looking to go back 10 to 8, or is there opportunity for both ways, both growth and maybe kind of taking the foot off the pedal a little bit?
You know, I have. Good question, because I have had one particular dealer I think of who's in what we call Super 2. And this particular gentleman, he had grown to like 12 or 13 stores, and someone came with the opportunity to buy 11 of them, and he did one, and he got bored, and now he's back to 6. So I do see it. Sometimes people want to step back and get smaller, because it is, again, a lot different. But most of the members in my multi-franchise groups are all pattern. For instance, this is 24, so for 22, huge growth in most of my groups, a lot of acquisitions, and then 23 is a little bit of a pause, right back on it again, because the numbers are starting to level out. You can easily make a decision, but the whole acquisition strategy, that's huge topics on every single meeting, because you have to determine, and that's what we will do. We go around the room. You know what? We don't go into details if you have something working, but you may say, we have 2 in the process. We just added 2. So when you add 2 stores, what do you think the challenges are? Those who have done it before know there's lots of challenges, right? When you add 2 stores at a time, or even 1 store at a time, when do you go in to tell the people that you're going to be the next owner? You want to go in early, because if you wait too long, they're gone when you get there. Have an empty store. So there's a lot of different processes of how to get there to make sure it's the most. And a lot of the dealers in our groups have struggled to get to 5 or 6 just because of that. But once they 10 or 11, they kind of got it down pat, and now figure it out.
And what about, you know, with everything that's going on? So, because again, like you said, troubles double, and sometimes they quadruple, right? But how does that impact with regulatory issues, with, let's say, climate issues, buying climate, things of that nature? When I'm in this multi-franchise group, how am I impacted by some of those external factors that maybe I'm not necessarily in control with? And then what do I do?
Well, you know, good question. It is always brought up as a topic. You know, how do we handle all the new regulations that are always presented? And obviously, if you have to implement it in one store, when you want to implement it in 5 stores, it's an entirely different program. And we do discuss that quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so overall, what would you say, because I know we talked about there's a difference in the level of conversation. What have you seen for some of your dealer groups that have been existing in the group for a while? What is their biggest takeaway, biggest benefit from being involved in the group versus trying to do it on their own?
Without a doubt, the one thing each one will tell you is when you're with a group of people that are dealing with the same challenges you are, and we all know there's no book to run one. There's definitely no book on how to run 4 or 5. If you don't get outside of your bubble of your world and talk to other people about how things should be, you're probably not going to have a good result. And I'll give you an example. Later today, I have a workshop that I'm following with this, and I have a meeting set up after that workshop with a person that's in one of the multi-franchise groups who called me and said, I hired a new COO, and he has, I think, 18 stores. Do you have someone else who's already been a COO of a large group that's going to be at NADA? Can we sit down and set up a time for just to connect, have a 45-minute conversation, and then use that they can know each other for going forward? That's a benefit that is available within each groups, and we currently have 3, so that would give people, you know, a chance to do that, and it's really popular.
Absolutely, and that is great. Being able to network, but not only network, have experience to be able to specifically address maybe some of the concerns that new COO might be presented with, you know. Now, you mentioned that there's 3 multi-franchise groups right now. Do you foresee that growing, or where's the growth pace to make it, you know, all that?
Yes, currently we have 3, we call them again, they're multi-franchise groups, nicknamed Supergroup because the first 2 letters are SG. We have SGO 2 and 3. SGO 1 is the larger sized multi-franchise group, anywhere from 800 million in revenue and up. That group is looking at maybe 1 or 2 more members. SGO 2 is full, with some people waiting to get in. SGO 3 has openings for a few members, and we are going to be starting SGO 4 this week because there'll be conflicts. So people will be coming to the booth asking about, can I join a multi-franchise group? And you can't, as you may or may not know, be in the same town. So that we'll be expanding into 4, and then futures go beyond that, because you know, the single points are still doing very, very well, by the way. And if you look long term, there's no issues. If you look back, it's not what everyone thinks, but there's plenty in the middle that there's a lot of growth in the 5 to 20 space, and there's still there's a lot of people I get phone calls from that aren't ready to go to the next step if they want to be in BEV. They're ready to retire, and those are the ones that are helping the regular groups expand. And as they expand, they're looking for help, and that's what we're here for.
That's great. That's great. So give us some insight, because you mentioned about the logistics of, you know, not being in the same town and having that space and distance. How are the meetings normally conducted to be beneficial for those, especially from a logistics and geographical standpoint?
Yeah. So again, to be in a group, if you're in the group, be a competitor. In most of my groups, the multi-franchise groups spread out pretty much all around the country. And then the meetings obviously happen in different locations, but where the group happens to be, there's no one that's going to be given anything that's a conflict.
That's great. That's great. And then what about with, you know, if someone, like you said, wants to be a part of SGO 4, where can they find you? Information about getting signed up SGO for and saying, hey, you know what, this is great. I'm in that growth trajectory, and this is something I need to have on my radar.
Yep. So here's a couple of good things. So we're all here at NADA. You know, we have a booth that opens tomorrow, NADA Pavilion. I recommend you find some time to come to the pavilion. We will all be there. We have our moderators there. But the big thing is, I have a lot of multi-franchise dealers that are here. I see some in the crowd today. What we usually do, especially if you're here, if you're interested, come to the booth, and then I usually reach out to one of my members and set up a meeting. One of my moderators who moderates the SGO1 has a meeting this afternoon with a interested member, and he's meeting with 3 members of the group to see, is this what I want to do, and what's. I tell you, it's a great thing, but we always refer to peer, so you can hear from someone that has been in the group to see this is what we like.
I think that's a great point, because again, it's one thing when you are watching the game, it's another thing when you're playing in the game. And so being able to have that peer-to-peer and that influence of knowing, like, oh, I understand what that's, I've dealt with that myself, I think that does make a big difference when it comes to that group. And so what about with the supergroup moderators? Do the moderators rotate, or is it the same moderator that kind of carries out for maybe a calendar year, or how does that kind of normally play out?
Generally, moderators stay with the groups. Supergroup 2 is the group that I have. I had Supergroup 1, and then we brought another moderator in because I had a conflict with the group I take. But generally, the moderator stays. We don't rotate between groups, but we do communicate with each other. And then one other thing I always like to bring up, so we have multi-franchise groups, but the multi-franchise groups have spun off 2 groups. They've spun off a fixed group for the fixed directors of the multi-franchise group. So to be in that group, you have to be a fixed director in either 1, 2, or 3. And then we've also spun off a digital marketing group. To be in that group, you have to be a digital marketing manager for a multi-franchise group in 1, 2, or 3. And that's been very, very successful, because what happens is the owners have agreements that the managers go to those group meetings, but then one owner will go to each one to give feedback to see if it's valuable. And so far, in over a year they've been doing it, it's been very, very spectacular.
Yeah, that's amazing when you really think about it. And I think it speaks to the importance of being able to collaborate with others that are on the same journey that you're in. You know, having, like you said, deal groups, now they've broken out to say, hey, there's a need that we and a need that we see in fixed management, and now we're those subgroups based on that. So I think that's awesome to be able to, again, have that experience, but also be able to identify that need.
And right now we're also in discussion of starting a CFO spinoff. So the controllers or the CFOs with their controllers in a group. We have controller groups also for traditional, but this would be a multi-franchise controller/CFO groups that spin off within the multi-franchise.
Yeah, and it's support. I mean, that's the biggest thing that's needed, and especially like you said, with having the multiple franchises, having multiple things that you have to deal with, the more support, the better. And then what about as far as overall in the group, if there does become a conflict, right? Because sometimes that does happen if I'm looking to acquire a position and now it presents a conflict. How is that typically handled?
Another excellent question. Luckily, I've been running these groups for 3 years. I've only had a couple, and they were able to work out amongst themselves. One part I didn't add in there. So with the traditional group, we build a composite. Those in the 20 group know you have a composite, financial composite that's used in the meetings to compare. It's usually 8 of the 12 hours that you're together. Financial composite review. With multi-franchise, we do build you a composite, completely different, because think about it, if you have 10 stores, what do we do then? So what we do is we give you the ability to have your 10 stores in a subgroup, so you'll get a full composite for your dealer group. for your 10 stores, and then we compile all those 10 stores of data into one number that goes into a SGO2, for example, composite. Then you can look at the high level of your total sales in used, your total revenue or gross parts, and compare and say, together looking at it. Now, in a regular 20 group, there's, like I said, a lot of time spent on the composite. In multi-franchise groups, the composite is only 5 hours, not even, sometimes 3. Discussions in those groups are much more structured discussions, high-level discussions, management discussions, benefit discussions, marketing discussions, growth discussions, acquisitions, challenges of people, legal challenges, regulations, how you handle different regulations. Do you have someone, do you have an HR department as you've gotten bigger, right? You don't need an HR department with one store, but you certainly do with 10 or 15. So that part on the composite side is much different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine that to be, right? Because like you said, anytime you're compounding different brands, but then also different people, different groups, different areas, geographically, all of those things are things that you now have to prepare for. And so it sounds like what I hear you saying is that one of the biggest benefits of the multi-franchise 20 group is, especially at this level, it's high level about what's taking place in the day-to-day and how you can go ahead and move the needle forward efficiently, and learning from, you know, others and your peers that stumbled or made the wrong choice, or, you know, kind of figured out like, oh, I could have done that better, right? How transparent, because I think you mentioned with the financial composite, and it's also, I think a lot of times when we talk about now, at some point there's always competition, right? You know, it's like, how many groups do you know? How many stores do you have? How many employees? You know, how many 5 stars? You know, we always compare and compete some way. How transparent are the groups able to get to really be able to help one another?
Well, you know, every group that I have, including multi-franchise, very transparent. Everyone knows that you're not a direct competitor. You're not in the same exact market, but you have the same challenges. And when you're in those groups, you want to help each other. That's why you're there. Yeah. And it never becomes an issue. Very rarely do you see someone who just sits and doesn't want to give. It's usually give and take. And then one thing also, back to the subgroup composite, one of the biggest benefits of being in a multi-franchise group is the ability to have a composite for just your 10 stores, has the best of class in there for each brand. It has group's average, and those composites are online and in a book, and you could use it for meetings, so you can have your own dealer meetings. We have people that are in our multi-franchise groups that also will bring in one of our moderators to run a 20 group for their dealer group. And using the online composite, it's the exact same setup. So a lot of power in numbers and a lot of power in the tool.
Yeah, and it sounds like the tools that are there are going to help take the pressure off. You know, it's going to help me not only have better insight with being able to have everything composited in one convenient area, but then also to be able to identify maybe some areas where I can improve or get better. So that way, when I do have my dealer group meeting, I can go back to my, you know, certain stores and say, hey, you guys are doing this great, but you guys can improve on this element or aspect. We talked a lot about the dealership as a whole. How are you seeing in the 20 groups? Is there any conversation regarding whether it be sales or service or collision or specific parts of the dealership that the franchises are noticing, like, hey, we're up against this more and more recently?
Well, I think everyone here knows the entire market has changed. We went through the 3 biggest years in the history of our business.
Yes.
No one in March of 2020 predicted that you're going to make more money in the next 3 years than you ever made in your life. That didn't happen. And now we're switching back to a much more competitive market. So the competition, inventory coming back, interest rates, all those challenges, this is what is about being in any 20 group, much less multi-franchises. How do you address it, and what are you doing? So in the multi-franchise side, you know, there's a lot of discussions on what are you doing with training? Who manages? Do you have a trainer, depending on your side? size, who is your training? Do you have a training person? And that person is in charge. What is their responsibility? What is their pay plan? What is your expectations? Well, how do you hold them accountable? Oh, that big word again, accountability.
Accountability.
If you don't have that word in your business, any business, so how do you hold that training person accountable to get performance and to train people to handle these new challenges this year? We discussed this in all of our groups. Salespeople forgot to sell because they didn't have to. You're lucky I have it. It's right there. This is the price. That went away. Now we got to go back to selling again. It got harder again. So a lot of the multi-franchises, when you're big and you have 15, 20, I have some people as many as 30 stores. If you weren't prepared this year with a good training director and someone who knew how to set up formal training, and whether it was using NADA for training or internal training or bringing people on site, all of which we offer, who did it, who coordinated with it?
Right.
And one of the biggest training pieces we have is the education subscription, which NADA offers, where if you pay one monthly fee per store, and they can use a lot of our training offers that we have outside of Academy. And to get more information, we'll give it to that if you stop by the booth. But most of my multi-franchise are all signed up on that program because they can train all their advisors, they can train their office managers, they can train their salespeople, and make sure that everybody has and the training directors of the multi-franchise coordinate that through NADA and get a lot of assistance with it.
Absolutely. So 2 things before we've got about 2 minutes left. So 2 things I want you to speak to. Thing I want you to speak to is if you are out in the audience and you are on that growth trajectory and you say, I do want to get to that multi-franchise level, what are some things they need to do to get prepared for that? So that's the first thing I want you to speak to. And then the second thing is maybe they're a multi-franchise owner already, but not involved in the 20 group. What do they need to do to take those next steps?
The answer is, your first question is to begin to become multi-franchise, that you need to obviously be thinking and looking for ways to acquire another dealership. And the best recommendation that comes from all our meetings is word of mouth, not a broker. You need to know who's who in your market. You know who owns dealerships. You know their age. You know their families. And if you have people in your markets that are getting up in age and they don't have any family, I can't tell you how many I know. You need to be starting knocking on their doors and saying, hey, I just want you to know, when you're ready, we're ready. Let's start the discussion. I'll tell you how many people in my multi-franchise groups, most of their acquisitions were that way. And then the second question, answer, and be the last one, would be, if you're interested, again, our pavilion will be open tomorrow starting at 10. We'll be there all weekend. Just come on. We can show you more of what I just talked about. But the big thing is, come see me, and I'll coordinate a set where you could meet with. I have quite a few people from multi-franchise that are on site. They'd be glad to talk to you one-on-one and tell you that they're glad they did it. They're staying in the groups. They've expanded from 3 to 7, from 7 to 10, and making a lot of money, and would never miss having that peer-to-peer education chance.
That's great, Joel. Thank you so much for your time. I know you've got someplace else to be, so I want to thank you. And you've got time to make it there. And again, as he mentioned, tomorrow the NADA Pavilion opens on the actual show floor. So get excited for that. And if you do have questions that you've gathered from today, the NADA Pavilion is going to be a great place to get those questions answered. So Joel, again, thank you for the time. It's good to see you. Absolutely.
See you next year.
Yes, see you next year.
Welcome to the new era of entertainment. Powered by a community of over 1 billion people globally, engaging with an entire movie's worth of content every single day. That's 1 billion people with the opportunity to go from FOMO to showing the world who they really are. TikTok is where real makes its way onto red carpets and runways. Here, everyday people are creating and sharing the moments that drive culture. This is a global community of creators redefining, reimagining, and remixing entertaining content as we know it, only on TikTok.